Chapter 1182. When we first entered the Xitigarbis Cemetery, Senior Medicine King said that it would open again in 6 months. Even if we know this news now, we can't tell the outside world about the evil dragon realm's invasion. Tang Ao didn't have a deep understanding of the Xitigarbis Cemetery, but he knew that it was surrounded by a powerful barrier. If they didn't break the barrier, they wouldn't be able to leave. Chu Xuahan agreed with Tang Ao's words, so she also looked at Lu Wen. She didn't know if Lu Wen had any special methods to leave this place. However, Lu Wen only smiled bitterly and said, Princess Qing Lin of the Voodoo Spectre tribe has a secret technique that allows her to communicate with the experts of the Voodoo Spectre tribe, even in the Xitigarbis Cemetery. In other words, as long as we find Lady Qing Lin, we can spread this news. Tang Ao understood what Lu Wen meant. At the same time, he also knew why Lu Wen smiled bitterly. Tang Ao had entered the Xitigarbis Cemetery to search for the spiritual ice fruit forest, but he still hadn't found Qing Lin. How could it be easy to find a living person in the Xitigarbis Cemetery? There were 9 regions in the Xitigarbis Cemetery. Each region was vast and boundless. Who knew where Qing Lin was right now? I have some friendship with Princess Qing Lin. Lady Qing Lin most likely has a keepsake of mine. That way, as long as Lady Qing Lin is within 5,000 miles of me, I will be able to sense her. I'm going to look for Qing Lin and Gunyinji now. I hope we'll meet again in the future. Lu Wen cupped his fists towards the two of them and left. What do we do now? Chu Xuahan asked Tang Ao after Lu Wen left. Although Chu Xuahan didn't panic, she didn't know what to do. We have to find the spiritual ice fruit forest first. Once we find it, my cultivation will recover. Once my cultivation is restored, we won't be so passive in the Xitigarbis Cemetery. After being together with Chu Xuahan for such a long time, Tang Ao had already regarded Chu Xuahan as a friend. Therefore, Tang Ao did not continue to hide the fact that he was seriously injured from Chu Xuahan. Chu Xuahan was somewhat surprised by Tang Ao's words. She then asked doubtfully, "You're injured?" But Tang Ao nodded affirmatively. I went through a huge battle a year ago and damaged my foundation. Although my external injuries have healed, my spirit sea has yet to fully recover. By chance, I discovered that the wood ice fruit was somewhat beneficial to my injuries, but the effects were minimal. Therefore, I guess that the spirit ice fruit, which is 10 times more effective than the wood ice fruit, will most likely be able to heal my injuries. Chu Xuahan nodded her head. For some serious injuries that damaged the foundation, the wood ice fruit and spirit ice fruit were indeed miraculous. Back then, her great-grandfather had been plotted against, and his foundation had been damaged, turning him into a cripple. In the end, he had consumed the spirit ice fruit to recover. Tang Ao's current injuries were much lighter than her great-grandfather's. If they could find the spirit ice fruit in the Xitigarbis Cemetery, Tang Ao might really be able to recover. Tang Ao Longchu's injuries were much lighter than her great-grandfather's. If they could find the spiritual ice fruit in the Xitigarbis Cemetery, Tang Ao might really be able to recover. Moreover, Tang Ao's keen senses had captured 2 powerful auras. 2 experts were currently fighting each other. Chapter 1183. Tang Ao and Chu Xuahan knew this flood dragon expert. He was one of the 3 priests of the evil dragon realm. The 3 flood dragon chief priests that had descended from the evil dragon realm were very similar. The only difference was that the high priest had golden eyebrows, while the other 2 had white eyebrows and black eyebrows. The one fighting the giant lava bear was the black-browed priest. At the same time, Tang Ao also saw that the shocking battle between the 2 had attracted many nearby martial artists. When these martial artists saw the giant lava bear, they couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Heavens, what is that thing? It can actually fight against a peak life and death realm demonic flame bear king. Could it be some powerful demonic beast that has taken human form? A martial artist stared at the flood dragon priest and said, "Who cares what it is? When the sandpiper and the clam fight, the fisherman benefits. Every scale of the demonic flame bear king is a treasure. We just need to follow from afar and get rich." Makes sense, makes sense. Tang Ao was not as optimistic as them. This demonic flame bear king might not have high intelligence, but the flood dragon priest was clearly not someone easy to deal with. When the flood dragon priest saw more and more martialists gathering around it, a sinister smile flashed across its face. Then it spread its arms, and a mystical wave spread in all directions. Many martial artists were confused after feeling this fluctuation, but Tang Ao's expression changed drastically. This is the soul sacrifice secret technique. Retreat. Tang Ao roared at the crowd and immediately left the range of the technique with Chu Xiuhan. Some of the martial artists in the periphery also instantly retreated. A few powerful martial artists also quickly retreated from the range of the Flood Dragon Priest's secret technique. However, there were still many unlucky martial artists within the range of the secret technique. Before these people knew what was going on, a huge array appeared under their feet. They immediately discovered that they had completely lost control of their bodies. Even their awakened life spirits could not be sensed. Just at this moment, a strange black spiritual power drifted out of the array and quickly drilled into the bodies of the warriors in the array. The moment the black spiritual power drilled into their bodies, these cultivators let out wails as if they were being tortured. Tang Ao and the others were also shocked to find that as the black spiritual power poured into the bodies of these martial artists, their bodies were also changing rapidly. Tang Ao saw a body not far from him suddenly turn into a cloud of black mist. Then, with a wail, a huge dragon tail and two ferocious dragon claws stretched out of the black mist. In an instant, the human clan warrior had turned into a monster that was neither human nor ghost. After the first martial artist transformed into this appearance, many martial artists in the spirit array began to transform into this appearance one after another. However, after becoming such monsters, their eyes were empty and vacant, and they had stopped wailing. Just as everyone was wondering what would happen next, the Flood Dragon Priest who was fighting the demonic flame bear king suddenly waved his sleeve and shouted, "Go!" Immediately after, these transformed Flood Dragon monsters pounced at the surrounding people. The few martial artists at the front who were scared silly did not even have time to react before their heads were crushed by the claws of the Flood Dragon monsters. Red and white blood flowed all over the ground. Tang Ao was not very close, but for some reason, one of the Flood Dragon monsters still pounced at Tang Ao. Chapter 1184. Facing the incoming Flood Dragon monster, Tang Ao instantly summoned the Azure Lotus Sword Soul. A green lotus blossomed in the air. The green lotus spun in the air and instantly transformed into 7 long swords flickering with resplendent green light. Tang Ao pointed with his finger, and the Azure Lotus Sword also transformed into 7 streams of light that bombarded the Flood Dragon monster. Chu Xiuhan released a ball of peach-colored flame. This ball of flame was very beautiful, as if it was harmless to humans and animals. However, the terrifyingly high temperature that it emitted told others that it was not as harmless as it looked. PFFF, PFFF, PFFF. The sound of a sharp blade piercing through cloth could be heard. Tang Ao's incomparably sharp Azure Lotus Sword actually completely pierced through the Flood Dragon monster's body. However, the instant the Azure Lotus Sword pierced through the Flood Dragon monster's body, the Flood Dragon monster seemed to turn into a ball of black mist. Tang Ao's Azure Lotus Sword actually did not cause too much damage to it. This was the fireball that Chu Xiuhan blasted out, and it also exploded on the Flood Dragon monster's body. After being blasted by the fireball, the Flood Dragon monster let out a mournful scream. This scream directly caused Tang Ao and Chu Xiuhan's heads to buzz. When they recovered, the Flood Dragon monster was already howling as it fiercely clawed at Chu Xiuhan's throat. Chu Xiuhan immediately raised her sword to block, but Chu Xiuhan's short sword was slapped away by the Flood Dragon monster's claw. Moreover, the monster's momentum did not decrease as it continued to claw at Chu Xiuhan. Scram! Tang Ao instantly arrived in front of Chu Xiuhan. A golden light flickered on his body, and a layer of golden armor instantly appeared. At the same time, Tang Ao also kicked out, hitting the Flood Dragon monster's chest. Tang Ao's sudden kick caused the Flood Dragon monster to stagger, but Tang Ao was sent flying back by the recoil. What a terrifying defense! After Tang Ao returned to Chu Shuahan's side, he looked at the Flood Dragon monster in shock. Let's be careful." Chu Shuahan nodded and summoned 9 balls of peach-colored flame in the surroundings. As Tang Ao and Chu Shuahan worked together to deal with the Flood Dragon monster, the other martial artists were also dealing with the Flood Dragon monster. Meanwhile, the black-browed priest was still locked in battle with the demonic Flame Bear King. In terms of strength, the hill-sized demonic Flame Bear King had the absolute advantage. However, the demonic Flame Bear King's intelligence was too low. None of the priest's attacks could hit the Flood Dragon priest. On the other hand, the Flood Dragon priest kept finding opportunities to inflict more injuries on the demonic Flame Bear King. However, the demonic Flame Bear King's skin was truly thick. No matter how the Flood Dragon priest attacked, the demonic Flame Bear King only suffered some superficial wounds. Trapped on Tang Ao's side, Chu Shuahan formed a hand seal, and 9 pink flames immediately appeared around the Dragon Man monster. Following that, the 9 flames connected with each other and instantly formed a flame barrier that trapped the Dragon Man monster. The Dragon Human monster tried to break through the flame barrier, but it let out a strange cry as it was burned by the terrifying heat of the flames. Beautifully done. Seeing this scene, Tang Ao praised and immediately took out the Primordial Sacred Heaven Bow. All along, the Primordial Sacred Heaven Bow had been Tang Ao's strongest offensive method. However, using the Primordial Sacred Heaven Bow consumed too much of Tang Ao's energy. Therefore, he needed to achieve a one-hit kill effect. Now that the Flood Dragon monster was trapped by Chu Shuahan, if Tang Ao still failed to hit the Flood Dragon monster, Tang Ao could throw away the Primordial Sacred Heaven Bow. Chapter 1185. Pong. Like a black firework exploding in the night sky, Tang Ao's arrow blasted the Flood Dragon person monster into a black fog that filled the sky. Soon after, the black mist slowly gathered together once more. Not long after, the black mist transformed back into the appearance of the cultivator it had first appeared in. However, this martial artist was already dead, and his death was extremely miserable. After Tang Ao showed his prowess and killed a Flood Dragon monster, Tang Ao didn't even have the time to rejoice before he thought, "Not good." Sure enough, just as this thought flashed through Tang Ao's mind, a martial artist from the 9th floor of Linghai Jing flew toward Tang Ao. "Friend, your divine weapon is not bad. It would be such a waste for it to be in your hands. Why don't you sell it to me?" Zhang Fengyu said he would sell it, but his hand was already grabbing toward Tang Ao's Primordial Sacred Sky Bow. However, before Zhang Fengyu could grab the Primordial Sacred Sky Bow, his hand was knocked back by a cane. "Zhang family's brat. First come, first served. I have my eyes on this bow. Little friend, name your price." A skinny martial artist wearing linen clothes and a bamboo hat appeared like a ghost in front of Tang Ao. Although he didn't try to rob it like Zhang Fengyu, the aura on his body locked onto Tang Ao. Moreover, this aura had a vague oppressive feeling. If Tang Ao was only a normal 4th level C of Soul's Realm Warrior, he would have already been pressed down by this horrifying aura. Piss off. This person used his aura to oppress Tang Ao. If Tang Ao treated him nicely, then Tang Ao wouldn't be Tang Ao anymore. This elder in linen clothes was at the 3rd level of Life and Death Realm. After Tang Ao told him to piss off, he was dazed for a second. Obviously, he didn't expect a 4th level C of Soul's Realm brat to be so rude to him. "Bastard, this old man will teach you how to respect your elders." As the old man spoke, he reached out to grab Tang Ao. However, just as he stretched out his hand, there was a flash of lightning in front of him. Then, Tang Ao, who had been enveloped by his aura, was already 300 feet away. After dodging the old man's attack, Tang Ao did not stop and immediately brought Chu Shuahan away. Unlike the others, Tang Ao did not have many thoughts about the fiery demon bear king. Compared to the fiery demonic bear king, Tang Ao obviously wanted to find the spirit ice fruit forest more. However, it was not that easy for Tang Ao to leave. A handsome warrior in white robes suddenly appeared in front of Tang Ao. Moreover, this person did not waste any words. As he intercepted Tang Ao, he swept out with his spear, forcing Tang Ao back. Tang Ao, be careful. This is Li Chunfeng of the Lightning Temple. He is very powerful. Seeing the white-robed youth, Chu Xuahan cautiously reminded Tang Ao. Even if Chu Xuahan did not say anything, Tang Ao knew that this Li Chunfeng was not easy to deal with. Tang Ao was only at the 4th level of the Sea of Souls realm, but this Li Chunfeng was at the 6th level of the Life and Death realm. Just now, Tang Ao had dodged Li Chunfeng's attack in time. However, right now, Tang Ao still felt a stinging pain on his face. It was caused by Li Chunfeng's silver spear. I'm not interested in that bow of yours. Give me the heavenly star art, and I will not make things difficult for you. Although Li Chunfeng's tone was calm, a hint of passion flashed through his eyes. Although he was not the Lightning Temple's disciple with the surname Lei, he had also trained in the Five Thunder Art. After training in the Five Thunder Art, he naturally knew how powerful it was. It was rumored that the second half of the Five Thunder Art was with Tang Ao. He was worried that he would not be able to find Tang Ao, but he did not expect to run into him here. Chapter 1186. Tang Ao was gambling. He was betting that Li Chunfeng, Lei Ming, and Lei Lingyun were not the same kind of people. This way, Li Chunfeng would not know whether he was speaking the truth or not. In fact, Tang Ao's gamble was correct. In the Lightning Temple, Li Chunfeng refused to submit to either Lei Lingyun or Lei Ming. He had his own ambition. He wanted to become the next Lightning Temple Lord. Li Chunfeng, a disciple with a different surname, dared to go against Lei Lingyun and Lei Ming in the Lightning Temple. Other than his powerful cultivation, he was also very quick-witted. As soon as Tang Ao finished speaking, Li Chunfeng immediately said coldly, "If you don't hand over the Heavenly Star Art, I can only do it myself." Lei Lingyun is a peak life and death realm expert. If he finds you, do you think you'll still be alive? Even though his lie was exposed, Tang Ao did not panic. You have already seen how I escaped. The Heavenly Star Art is in Lei Lingyun's hands. Even if you kill me, you can forget about obtaining the Heavenly Star Art. However, at this point, Tang Ao stopped abruptly and did not continue. But what? Li Chunfeng did not beat around the bush with Tang Ao and asked directly, "I've looked through the Heavenly Star Art. If you kill these two, I can make a copy for you." Tang Ao pointed at the old man, and Zheng Fengyu not far behind him. After Tang Ao was stopped by Li Chunfeng, the two chased after him. However, the two obviously knew Li Chunfeng. Therefore, when they saw that Li Chunfeng had designs on Tang Ao, they did not come over. That's easy. Hearing that Tang Ao only had this little request, Li Chunfeng did not even think and swept his spear at the old man. "Li Chunfeng, are you crazy? If you want the treasure on this brat, just kill him. Why do you have to make things difficult for me?" The old man shouted as he retreated. Tang Ao didn't expect Li Chunfeng to be conceited to such an extent. At the instant Li Chunfeng attacked the hemp-clothed old man, Tang Ao didn't hesitate to execute the Wind Thunder Nether Cloud, bringing Chu Xuahan along as he flew far away. Li Chunfeng also reacted quickly, flipping his hand and throwing the spear in his hand towards Tang Ao. It was just that this time, he had clearly underestimated the speed of the Tempest Nether Cloud. A bolt of purple lightning flashed in midair, and Tang Ao and Li Chunfeng instantly disappeared from Li Chunfeng's sight. Li Chunfeng instantly enveloped the area with his soul remembrance. His powerful soul remembrance was only able to faintly capture the figures of Tang Ao and the other person. Moreover, because the Wind Thunder Dark Cloud was too fast, Tang Ao quickly escaped the range of his soul remembrance. At this moment, Li Chunfeng did not dare to hesitate. He immediately chased after Tang Ao. It was just that even though his speed was not slow compared to the Wind Thunder Nether Cloud, it was still insufficient to look at. Even if Li Chunfeng chased with all his strength, the distance between him and Tang Ao was constantly being pulled apart. Not long after, Tang Ao and the other person had already disappeared from his soul remembrance's range. Li Chunfeng very angrily roared towards the sky, scaring a few of the weaker demonic beasts nearby into lying on the ground, not daring to move. However, Tang Ao and Chu Shuahan did not have the chance to see this scene. Tang Ao brought Chu Shuahan all the way until Tang Ao's soul remembrance could no longer detect Li Chunfeng. Only then did Tang Ao stop. In Tang Ao's opinion, his soul remembrance was unable to detect Li Chunfeng. Even if Li Chunfeng's cultivation was stronger than his soul remembrance definitely wasn't much stronger than his. Therefore, escaping to this distance was barely safe. However, before Tang Ao could relax, a stone mountain in front of Tang Ao and Chu Shuahan suddenly exploded. Subsequently, Tang Ao saw two figures behind the stone mountain. Chapter 1187. The two of them, who were fighting, naturally saw Tang Ao. Immediately, their faces lit up with joy. Lei Lingyun's body flickered with lightning, and a vast sea of lightning formed behind him. As he forced back the flood dragon priest with his scarlet thunder halberd, a silver lightning ring flew toward Tang Ao. This silver lightning ring seemed to be a rather powerful divine weapon. When it flew toward Tang Ao felt the flow of spiritual power in his body become somewhat sluggish, as if there was a mysterious suppressive fluctuation that wanted to completely suppress and imprison his power. Moreover, this was not the end. After Lei Lingyun threw the lightning ring, the flood dragon priest instantly summoned a pitch-black magic sphere cage next to Tang Ao. The magic sphere cage emitted a terrifying suction force, as if it wanted to suck Tang Ao into the magic sphere. Lei Lingyun and Jian Xiaoyan's cultivation bases far surpassed Tang Ao's to begin with. Thus, when the two of them attacked Tang Ao at the same time, Tang Ao instantly became incapable of moving. Additionally, a tearing pain spread through his body. Tang Ao, Chu Shuahan cried out in alarm and was about to come over to help Tang Ao. "Don't come over." Tang Ao hastily stopped Chu Shuahan. Although Chu Shuahan's cultivation was at the first layer of life and death realm and was a bit stronger than him, she would not be able to help against Lei Lingyun and the Flood Dragon Priest. However, Chu Shuahan did not listen to Tang Ao and stubbornly went over to Tang Ao's side. After arriving at Tang Ao's side, Chu Shuahan was immediately placed under Lei Lingyun's lightning ring and Flood Dragon Priest Justice Sphere. Chu Shuahan's pretty face immediately paled. Although her cultivation was higher than Tang Ao's, her ability to endure pain was clearly far inferior to Tang Ao's. However, with Chu Shuahan sharing some of the pressure on Tang Ao was barely able to move. After regaining his mobility, Tang Ao immediately summoned the Shenong the Arch. At the same time, he bombarded the silver lightning ring above his head. When Tang Ao used the Shenong Emperor to attack Lei Huan felt as though he was being provoked. In an instant, a waterfall of lightning poured down on Tang Ao and Chu Shuahan. That terrifying might was a declaration of destruction and death to anything that stood in its way. After feeling the terrifying pressure of the lightning ring, Chu Shuahan had already recognized what this lightning ring was. In a lightning temple, there were 5 treasures that were extremely powerful. Among them, there was a lightning hoop-shaped treasure called the 9-Dragon Lightning Hoop. However, it was rumored that the 9-Dragon Lightning Hoop had always been in the possession of the Lightning Hall Master. Hence, Chu Shuahan had never imagined that the item that Lei Lingyun had casually taken out to deal with Tang Ao would actually be such a powerful item. Chu Shuahan had heard from the old Medicine King that the Lightning Hall Master had once used this 9-Dragon Lightning Hoop to kill a Grade 7 Shadow Beast. Although there was no way to verify this, it was enough to show how powerful the 9-Dragon Lightning Hoop was. And now, she and Tang Ao were facing this abnormally terrifying 9-Dragon Lightning Hoop. But what Chu Shuohan did not expect was that the medicine cauldron that Tang Ao had thrown out actually did not fall into a disadvantage against such a top-notch killing weapon like the 9-dragon lightning hoop. In fact, it even seemed as though it was going to break through it. Seeing this scene, Chu Shuohan's face lit up with joy. Immediately, Chu Shuohan cut open her palm and slapped out a bright red mysterious pattern in the air. The mysterious pattern changed in the air, and a lot of Chu Shuohan's essence blood was absorbed by it. Chu Shuohan's aura instantly weakened. Chapter 1188. Tang Ao couldn't help but worry when he saw Chu Shuohan's pale complexion. Fortunately, Chu Shuohan's secret technique was quite powerful, even though it consumed a lot of energy. Suddenly, a cry could be heard in the air. With a soft cry, the three-legged firebird Chu Shuohan summoned flapped its wings and pounced toward the black orb summoned by the Flood Dragon High Priest. The three-legged flame bird appeared insignificant in front of the pitch-black magic ball. It was like a moth flying into a flame. However, reality did not develop as expected. After the three-legged flame bird, bathed in golden flames, flew towards the huge magic ball summoned by the Flood Dragon Priest, it suddenly took a deep breath and spat out a huge, explosive, and scorching fireball. The moment the fireball appeared, the surrounding temperature suddenly rose and an aura of destruction spread out. In an instant, the fireball became the same size as the black magic ball summoned by the Flood Dragon High Priest and fiercely collided with it. Rumble boom, boom. Suddenly, the black magic ball summoned by the Flood Dragon High Priest exploded. The huge fireball spat out by the three-legged flame bird also exploded. The entire space instantly turned into a sea of fire. The surrounding mountain range also ignited with raging flames. Flames soared in the air, and black mist rolled back. It was a shocking scene. After breaking through the barrier of the Flood Dragon High Priest magic ball, Chu Shuohan could no longer hold on. She vomited a mouthful of blood and fainted. Tang Ao hastily stepped forward and caught Chu Shuohan. At the same time, he instantly activated the spatial talisman he had prepared. "He's trying to escape," the Flood Dragon High Priest said anxiously after sensing the spatial ripples around Tang Ao. On the other hand, Lei Lingyun's reaction was much faster than Tang Ao's. The moment the space around Tang Ao fluctuated, Lei Lingyun pressed his palm down, and the 9-dragon lightning rings in the air burst out with a shocking might. 9 bucket-thick purple lightning bolts erupted from the 9-dragon lightning rings and fiercely struck the Shinnon cauldron. Although the grade of the Farmer God cauldron was not inferior to the 9-dragon lightning rings, the difference between Tang Ao and Lei Lingyun was too great. The Farmer God cauldron only managed to resist for a moment before it was blasted into Tang Ao's body by the terrifying lightning. Without the obstruction of the Shinnon Emperor, the 9 bolts of lightning that emitted boundless power blasted towards Tang Ao and his companion, who had yet to be teleported away. These 9 thunderbolts were incomparably powerful, and Tang Ao could feel an aura of death. However, at this moment, Tang Ao had no means to block the lightning. All he could do was summon the Battle Sage Bone Life Soul and use his body to protect Chu Shuohan. Boom! The violent lightning instantly struck Tang Ao's Battle Sage Bone Life Soul. The Battle Sage Bone Life Soul was already a very powerful life soul with 29 days of life soul strength. However, as Tang Ao's cultivation level was too low, the Battle Sage Bone Life Soul could only unleash less than 30% of its might. Therefore, under the terrifying bombardment of the 9-dragon lightning rings, the Battle Sage Bone Life Soul only managed to withstand it for an instant before shattering into specks of light and shrinking back into Tang Ao's body. After shattering the Battle Sage Bone Life Soul, the 9 thunderbolts struck Tang Ao without any obstruction. Instantly, Tang Ao felt his back lose feeling. This was the result of his flesh and bones being reduced to ashes by the lightning. If someone was behind Tang Ao, they would be able to see the terrifying wound on Tang Ao's body. Chapter 1189. Millions of li away, On a cliff, two figures suddenly appeared in the air. The two had already lost consciousness. After appearing in the air, they fell down the cliff like red leaves in the wind. At this height, if the two fell down, even if they were martial artists with high cultivation base, they would still feel dizzy, not to mention that their auras were very weak. These two were naturally Tang Ao and Chu Xuehan. After floating in the air for a while, Chu Xuehan's beautiful eyelashes fluttered twice. Then she opened her eyes weakly. After opening her eyes, Chu Xuehan saw Tang Ao, who was on the verge of death. Seeing that hideous wound on Tang Ao's back, Chu Xuehan was very anxious. She wanted to stop her body and take out some medicinal pellets to save Tang Ao. However, at this moment, there was not the slightest bit of spirit power in her body. Even moving her body was very difficult. Not long ago, she used that secret art to summon a golden three-legged flame bird. Although that three-legged flame bird did not have the horrifying aura of the three-legged golden crow. In fact, it was indeed a young three-legged golden crow. Facing a top expert like the Flood Dragon Chief Priest, Chu Xuehan really did not know what to do other than this all-out secret art. However, with Chu Xuehan's current cultivation base, forcefully summoning a three-legged golden crow was also very frightening. Although that three-legged golden crow was only a young three-legged golden crow, Chu Xuehan's spirit power and soul remembrance were instantly sucked dry. Even her meridians and internal organs were damaged. This technique to summon the three-legged golden crow was recorded in her bloodline. At the beginning of her cultivation, Chu Xuehan knew that before reaching astral reaching realm, she could not use this secret art. And right now, she was only at the first layer of life and death realm. If she used this secret art, the consequences would be unimaginable. Chu Xuehan slightly turned her head and saw the bottomless abyss below the canyon. Chu Xuehan glanced at Tang Ao, then said in a low voice, "Are we going to die here?" Perhaps dying here is not that bad. The cold wind whistled past their ears, and not long after, Tang Ao and Chu Xuehan fell from a height of tens of thousands of feet, right above the cliff. If Chu Xuehan could still move, what she wanted to do the most right now was to carry Tang Ao and fly to the cliff. Then she could heal Tang Ao. In fact, if she could use soul remembrance, she could release the small fox from the spirit beast bag and have a small fox fly her and Tang Ao to the cliff. But what made Chu Xuehan helpless was that other than blinking her eyes, she couldn't do anything else. Chu Xuehan had also thought that she might die one day, but she didn't expect this day to come so quickly. At this moment, Chu Xuehan did not think too much. She only felt a little relaxed. Although she didn't feel that living was tiring, she even felt that life was very exciting and warm. But after falling, perhaps it was really easy. Chu Xuehan wanted to reach out and grab Tang Ao's hand, but her body had lost all feeling. A bitter smile appeared on her face, and Chu Xuehan closed her eyes, quietly waiting for the end of her life. But at this moment, a martial artist in black suddenly flew over from the cliff. This martial artist cultivation was very weak, only at the 9th layer of body refining realm. But his movements were very agile. Chapter 1190. It wasn't that he didn't want to save Tang Ao, but that his strength was limited. In this situation, if he saved both Tang Ao and Chu Xuehan, he would be in danger. Secondly, his soul remembrance had swept over Tang Ao. Tang Ao had many fatal wounds and was currently in a half-dead state. Although he was shocked at Tang Ao's tenacious life force, he knew that even if he saved Tang Ao would still die. Therefore, Lu Xingjin didn't take the risk to save Tang Ao. In reality, there was another reason in Lu Xingjin's heart, and it was mostly because of this reason that Lu Xingjin didn't save Tang Ao. Although Lu Xingjin didn't understand why Tang Ao and Chu Xuehan would fall off the cliff with their last breaths, when Lu Xingjin had used his soul remembrance to look over, he had seen Chu Xuehan's beauty and was instantly shocked. Lu Xingjin simply couldn't believe that there was such a beautiful woman in this world. Moreover, When Lu Xingjin saw Chu Shuahan look at Tang Ao with gentle eyes, he knew that Chu Shuahan and Tang Ao's relationship wasn't shallow. Because of this, Lu Xingjin naturally didn't want to save Tang Ao. After Chu Shuahan was grabbed by the arm by Lu Xingjin, she immediately opened her eyes. Chu Shuahan really wanted to tell Lu Xingjin to save Tang Ao, but before she could say anything, Tang Ao disappeared from their sight. Lu Xingjin also dragged Chu Shuahan up the cliff. However, before Lu Xingjin even reached the cliff, a middle-aged woman jumped down from the cliff. She grabbed Lu Xingjin with one hand and hugged Chu Shuahan with the other, bringing the two of them back to the top of the cliff. After returning to the top of the cliff, the middle-aged woman gave Chu Shuahan, who was in her arms, to the servant girl beside her, before abruptly slapping Lu Xingjin's face. "Mother, why did you hit me?" Lu Xingjin was immediately stunned by Madame Lu's slap. This middle-aged woman was Lu Xingjin's birth mother. Madame Lu snorted coldly. "I've never seen you so warm-hearted usually. This time around, you're willing to throw away your life the moment you see a little lass. This is the River of Forgetfulness Cliff. Not to mention that you are only in the 9th level of the body refining realm. Even the legendary origin realm would have no chance of survival if they fell from here." After Madame Lu finished speaking, she glanced at Chu Shuahan. In her heart, she was a little surprised at how this girl was born to be so beautiful. When she was young, Mrs. Lu was also known as the #1 beauty of the Flying Star continent. However, even she paled in comparison to Chu Shuahan when she was young. After seeing how beautiful Chu Shuahan was, Madame Lu more or less understood why Lu Xingjin would take such a huge risk to save Chu Shuahan. "Ding Xiang, take good care of this young lady. Also, order people to look for the young man's corpse at the bottom of the cliff and bury it properly." Even though Madame Lu arrived later than Lu Xingjin, she had also noticed Tang Ao's fall from the cliff. Even though Madame Lu said these words to the servant girl, Tang Ao's words were meant for Chu Shuahan to hear. What he meant was that Tang Ao was already dead, and that Chu Shuahan's heart should no longer worry about Tang Ao in the future. Madame Lu was an experienced person. Naturally, she could see the longing in Chu Shuahan's eyes for Tang Ao. In the past, Lu Xingjin was completely obsessed with the martial way and did not care for the young ladies of the various families. Since he had taken a fancy to a girl this time, as a mother, she naturally had to help her son. Chapter 1191. At this moment, Tang Ao's consciousness was very hazy and he couldn't feel his body at all. Tang Ao could faintly feel that he was floating in a river for a very long time. At this moment, there seemed to be a boat approaching him. However, Tang Ao didn't know what kind of boat it was or who was on it. At this moment, Tang Ao's last remaining strand of soul was exhausted. Tang Ao's consciousness once again fell into a state of chaos. "Miss, look, there seems to be a person floating in the river." Next to Murong Xian, a 16 or 17-year-old servant girl pointed at Tang Ao, who was drifting about in the river as she spoke. "All right, Xiao Yun, go and see if he's still alive. If he's still alive, rescue him onto the boat." Murong Xian glanced at Tang Ao, who was bobbing up and down in the water, and said in a calm voice. She was born with special eyes, and her eyesight was far beyond that of an ordinary person. Even a martial artist at the pinnacle of the body refining realm would not be able to compare to her eyesight. Therefore, Murong Xian could tell that Tang Ao's condition was very bad. His entire body was pale, and it was obvious that he had been floating in the water for a very long time. Moreover, the life force on Tang Ao's body was so weak that it was hard to detect. Therefore, Murong Xian wasn't sure if Tang Ao was still alive. After receiving Murong Xian's approval, Xiao Yun walked briskly to the bow of the boat. She then rolled up her sleeves and leaped lightly. Like a nimble swallow, she flew towards Tang Ao. Along the way, Xiao Yun's figure lightly tapped the river's surface 3 times. Not only did she not fall into the water, but she also borrowed the force to soar. It was too early now, and there was no one around the river of forgetfulness. If there was anyone around, they would have recognized that Xiao Yun had just used the Murong family's unique Qigong technique, traceless snow steps. Xiao Yun's figure rose and fell a few times on the river's surface before she arrived next to Tang Ao. After seeing Tang Ao, Xiao Yun cried out, "Ah!" Although Xiao Yun was already at the third level of the body refining realm and had seen her fair share of scenes, Tang Ao's current state really scared this little girl. At that moment, although Tang Ao's back had recovered a little under the healing of the Jade Bone Life Soul, it still looked ferocious and terrifying. Although she was shocked by Tang Ao's injury, Xiao Yun quickly recovered. She grabbed Tang Ao's arm and carried Tang Ao on her shoulder. Immediately after, he used his movement technique and brought Tang Ao back to the pleasure boat. After handing over Tang Ao to the other two attendants, Xiao Yun leaned on the railing and panted heavily. "My lady, this person is really heavy. Also, his injuries are very serious." Xiao Yun panted as she spoke to Murong Xian. Murong Xian glanced at Tang Ao. At that moment, Tang Ao's face was a little pale. His eyes were slightly closed, and the wound on his back was very frightening. Murong Xian reached out her slender, jade-like hand and held Tang Ao's wrist. She then checked Tang Ao's pulse. He's still alive, but his injuries are very serious. Give him a rejuvenation pill. When he wakes up, ask him if he has any last wishes. Actually, Tang Ao had already woken up. Although he was weak, he was still a life and death realm cultivator. When someone approached him, Tang Ao could immediately sense it. When he realized that the person approaching him wanted to save him, Tang Ao was very grateful and did not think too much about it. When he heard Murong Xian's words, Tang Ao almost laughed out loud. Chapter 1192. "Miss, did you say to give him the 3-star miracle rejuvenation elixir?" A male martial artist carrying Tang Ao asked in disbelief. The Phaeacian continent was a continent where martial arts were extremely backward. The elixirs here were categorized into 9 stars. 1-star elixirs were the most common, while 9-star elixirs were the most precious. However, even the most common 1-star elixir was not something that could be afforded by ordinary people. "And put this 3-star elixir on my account." Murong Xian nodded lightly. 3-star elixir? Tang Ao was very confused. He did not know where the spatial jade talisman had transported him to. Tang Ao only knew that a pinnacle grade 6 spatial jade talisman would definitely be able to transport him and Chu Xiuhan a very long distance. Tang Ao did not know if he was still in the Xidagarba cemetery. Sensing that the cultivation of the surrounding martial artists was very low, Tang Ao thought that he should have been transported out of the Xidagarba cemetery by the spatial jade talisman. Moreover, Tang Ao was very satisfied with this place. Because there was almost no spiritual energy in the heaven and earth here, there would not be 2 strong martial artists in this place. Tang Ao sensed that the cultivation of the surrounding martial artists were all at the body refining realm. The little girl who had saved him was at the 3rd level of the body refining realm, and the little beauty who had taken his pulse was at the 4th level. Apart from the 2 of them, the rest of the martial artists on the boat were basically at the 1st to 2nd level of the body refining realm. In fact, Tang Ao realized that most of the people on the boat were ordinary people with strong bodies. However, their gazes revealed a sense of inferiority. Clearly, they knew that even if they were lucky enough to work on the boat, they were still the lowest existences on the boat, as they were not martial artists. In the world of martial arts, the strong were respected. This was an unchanging iron law. Naturally, Tang Ao did not know what these people were thinking. At this moment, Tang Ao was being carried by 2 martial artists to a guest room. This kid is really lucky. Miss actually took a 3-star miracle rejuvenation elixir from her account and gave it to him. After carrying Tang Ao into the room, the 2 cultivators did not leave immediately. Instead, they whispered to each other in the room. "Hee, what ability does this kid have to be able to enjoy a 3-star spirit pill? How about we brothers?" The cultivator didn't finish his words and instead looked at his companion with a smile that wasn't a smile. The martial artist on the other side naturally understood what he meant. Fangzheng and Tang Ao were unconscious and on the verge of death. Even if the two of them took the 3-star spirit pills for themselves, no one would know. All right, we'll each take half a pill. I heard that this rejuvenation pill is a top-grade healing pill. If you prepare half a pill on you, you will have half a life. Why are you still here? Are you here to take care of him? As the two of them were whispering, Qiu Yun's voice traveled over. Yes, yes, yes. We are here to look after this young master. Sister Qiu Yun is here to give him the pill, right? Leave this small matter to us brothers. We will feed it to him in a while. Although Qiu Yun was much younger than them, she was the personal servant of Miss Fong and had a very strong cultivation level. Therefore, the two of them didn't feel that there was anything wrong with calling Qiu Yun sister. After all, Qiu Yun was a little girl. How would she know that the two of them were going to take the pill for themselves? After smiling sweetly, Qiu Yun took out a jade bottle and handed it to Lu Zhuang. Lu Zhuang and Lu San looked at each other, and there was a meaningful smile hidden in their eyes. Chapter 1193. Although Tang Ao had his eyes closed after boarding the boat, Tang Ao was awake. Tang Ao realized that there was a very low-grade spirit gathering array on the boat. Therefore, when Tang Ao boarded the boat, he felt that the surrounding spirit energy was slightly denser. Tang Ao had the 9-dragon Emperor Jade body. After recovering a bit, Tang Ao's body was like a sponge, greedily absorbing the surrounding spirit energy. Although there wasn't much spirit energy, after accumulating, it was barely enough for the Jade Bone Life Soul to circulate. Under the healing of the Jade Bone Life Soul, Tang Ao had recovered some strength. However, Tang Ao was still lying on the boat without moving. Although he could absorb and refine spirit energy, Tang Ao's cultivation wasn't even at the first stage of the body refining realm. Tang Ao sensed his own body. Tang Ao knew that his injuries this time were worse than when he escaped to the snow plain. However, the only thing slightly better was that Tang Ao's spirit ocean wasn't completely shattered. It seemed that after the previous injury, the toughness of his spirit ocean had increased. Moreover, Tang Ao's 108 meridians had all been shattered, but this time he still had 3 meridians that could be used. No, this isn't spirit energy. At the start, Tang Ao just kept absorbing the spirit energy from the outside. However, as Tang Ao gradually recovered, Tang Ao realized that the surrounding space wasn't spirit energy, but a special energy that Tang Ao didn't know about. At that moment, Tang Ao sensed that Lu Zhuang and Lu Zhuang had cut the pills that Qiu Yun had given them in half and kept half each. Tang Ao scanned with his soul remembrance and saw the pill. Tang Ao recognized this pill. It was a low-grade 1-spirit pill, the spring returning pill. Even if such a thing was given to Tang Ao would never eat it. Seeing the two of them carefully putting away the pills like thieves, Tang Ao only felt that it was funny. After the two of them put away the pills, they looked around for a while. Then, they glanced at Tang Ao and left. As for taking care of Tang Ao, the two of them didn't have the mood to do so. How could they take care of a half-dead person? Tang Ao did not need the two to take care of him. After the two left, Tang Ao immediately got up and sat cross-legged. As the ancient God-moving sky technique was activated, the indescribable and mysterious power in the surroundings surged towards Tang Ao. Tang Ao sensed it carefully and found that this ability was not inferior to spiritual energy at all. If one really wanted to make a comparison, the energy contained in spiritual qi was at least 1,000 times that of this kind of energy. After investigating the special energy in the surroundings, Tang Ao did not continue to absorb the aura in the surrounding space. Instead, he took out a piece of top-quality spirit stone and prepared to absorb the pure spiritual power in the spirit stone. However, what shocked Tang Ao was that the moment he took out the spirit stone, it immediately turned into a pile of powder. The pure spiritual power in the spirit stone also assimilated into the special aura in the surrounding space and disappeared. I can't use spiritual power in this place. then why can I absorb the special energy in the surrounding space? Tang Ao was very confused. However, it did not take long before Tang Ao understood. The Nine-Dragon Emperor Jade body could contain the foundation of all Taoists. No matter what kind of power, the Nine-Dragon Emperor Jade body could sense and absorb it. Chapter 1194. In a simple cabin on the lower level of the boat, Tang Ao sat cross-legged on the bed with his eyes closed. Today was the third day that Tang Ao had been here. Although Tang Ao had the Nine Dragons Emperor's Jade body and could absorb the Yuan Qi in this place, Yuan Qi and Spirit Qi were simply incomparable. If spiky shell Tang Ao was in a place with Spirit Qi, then Tang Ao could use the Jade Bone Life Soul to heal all of his external injuries. However, Tang Ao was still riddled with injuries and could only move around slightly. In this day, Tang Ao had gained a certain understanding of this place. This was a region called the Flying Star Continent. There was no Spirit Qi in this place. Instead, it was filled with a special energy called Yuan Qi. Ordinary martial artists absorbed and refined spiritual energy to increase their cultivation, but the martial artists here absorbed and refined Yuan Qi to increase their cultivation. However, the power contained in the Yuan Qi was too weak, so the cultivation of the martial artists here was very low. Tang Ao understood that the highest cultivation a martial artist could reach in the Flying Star Continent was only the Origin Martial Realm. Furthermore, Origin Martial Realm martial artists were very rare. If Tang Ao and Chu Shuahan still had their cultivation, they could really do whatever they wanted in this place. However, Chu Shuahan was unable to absorb the Yuan Qi in this place to cultivate. Therefore, it was clearly impossible for her to recover her strength. Although Tang Ao could absorb the Yuan Qi here, the speed was too slow. Moreover, the energy contained in the Yuan Qi was too thin and weak. Tang Ao estimated that if he didn't have any other methods and just wanted to heal his external injuries, it would probably take half a year. While absorbing the surrounding Yuan Qi, Tang Ao circulated his weak psyche to check his injuries. The quality of Lei Ling Yun's 9 Dragon Lightning Rings was almost on par with Tang Ao's Farmer God Cauldron. Although Tang Ao had used the Farmer God Cauldron and the Battle Sage Life Soul to block the 9 Dragon Lightning Rings, Tang Ao's internal injuries were still very bad. Ordinary martial artists could only condense a Spirit Sea to increase their strength after the Spirit Sea realm. However, because Tang Ao had the 9 Dragons Emperor Jade body, not only did Tang Ao have a Spirit Sea, but Tang Ao also had a Soul Sea, which allowed the spirit power and psyche to achieve a balance. In martial cultivation, psyche only played a supporting role. Therefore, when one's cultivation was low, the strength of one's psyche was not very obvious. However, as Tang Ao faced opponents, Tang Ao began to understand the strength of the soul. But now, both Tang Ao's Spirit Sea and Soul Sea were dim and in a mess. Tang Ao checked the 108 meridians in his body. After being repaired by the Jade Bone Life Soul, Tang Ao only had 7 meridians that could perform the heavenly cycle revolution. After checking his injuries, Tang Ao smiled bitterly. The injuries from the Thunder Python and the Underworld Emperor's secret realm had not yet healed, and now they were even more serious. What was more serious was that he had come to the Flying Star Continent, a place devoid of heaven and earth spirit Qi. Under such conditions, Tang Ao didn't know how long it would take for him to recover his strength. After shaking his head helplessly, Tang Ao got up and walked out of the cabin. The boat that Tang Ao was currently on had a total of 3 floors. There were 2 floors above the deck and 1 floor below the deck. The room that Tang Ao was staying in was a slightly crude room on the first floor below the deck. Chapter 1195. After arriving on the deck, Tang Ao felt that the air was much fresher, but the surrounding natural energy was still very thin. Tang Ao gazed into the distance. The surface of the forgetful river was very wide, and the river water was a bit turbulent. It didn't have the sparkling feeling of a still river, but was instead full of a surging feeling. Ah, Brother Tang Ao, why are you out? Not far from Tang Ao, a girl in a light blue dress walked towards Tang Ao with a food box. Tang Ao naturally recognized this girl. Xiaoyan once passed by Tang Ao's room and noticed that Lu Zhuang and Lu Zhuang weren't taking care of Tang Ao, so she asked this girl to take care of Tang Ao. This girl was called Yu Er, and she was only 15 years old. Tang Ao used his remembrance to examine Yu Er's spirit root. Tang Ao found that Yu Er had an extremely rare illusion-type spirit root. If she was in the black-yellow continent, or even the ice and snow plains, as long as she had the right techniques, Yu Er would definitely become a top-tier expert. Unfortunately, in a place like the Flying Star continent, there was no spiritual energy and there were no illusion-type techniques. Thus, Yu Er couldn't cultivate martial arts. The Flying Star continent was a place where everyone wanted to cultivate martial arts. Although Yu Er was a bit disappointed that she couldn't cultivate martial arts, she wasn't depressed. Tang Ao and Yu Er hadn't known each other for long, but Tang Ao could often see a sweet smile on Yu Er's face. Yu Er, how are you? Are you going to deliver food to Miss Morong Xian? After seeing Yu Er, Tang Ao started chatting with her familiarly. Yu Er nodded, yes. However, Brother Tang Ao, your injuries haven't healed yet. You should rest well in your room. All right, Yu Er, you go do what you need to do. I'll take a walk on the deck. Tang Ao smiled warmly. All right, I'll bring something for you to eat later. Yu Er waved at Tang Ao and walked towards Morong Xian's room. However, in the instant that Yu Er turned around, she collided with a red-clothed woman who was charging towards her. The box of food in Yu Er's hands flew out of her hands. Fortunately, the red-clothed woman had quick reflexes. Not long after the box of food flew out, the red-clothed woman grabbed it with lightning speed. Although this seemed to be a coincidence, Tang Ao could tell that something was amiss. Although Tang Ao had yet to recover from his serious injuries, and his strength was not even a tenth of what it used to be. However, Tang Ao could still clearly see that the woman in red had not accidentally collided with Yu Er. She had intentionally collided with Yu Er. Moreover, Tang Ao saw the red-clothed woman sprinkle a handful of medicinal powder into the food box the instant she grabbed it. It was just that the direction she chose at that time just so happened to be Yu Er's blind spot, and her movements were extremely fast, so Yu Er didn't know anything. Yu Er didn't know, but she couldn't hide it from Tang Ao at that time. However, after sensing that the red-clothed woman was also at the third level of the body refining realm, Tang Ao could only pretend that he didn't know anything. Tang Ao's current state was really too poor. He was even weaker than a martial artist at the first level of the body refining realm. If he didn't have the ability to protect himself, how would Tang Ao dare to provoke this red-clothed woman? Here, after tampering with the food box, the red-clothed Ding Ning said indifferently. Chapter 1196. At first, when Ding Ning was messing with the food box, Tang Ao was prepared to warn you. However, later on, Tang Ao discovered that a vague soul remembrance was constantly spying on them. Nothing that happened here could escape her eyes. Tang Ao recognized the owner of this soul remembrance. It was Qiu Yun, who had saved him from the Forgetting River. Qiu Yun and Ding Ning had similar cultivations. They were both at the third level of the body refining realm. However, Qiu Yun's cultivation technique seemed to be rather special. Under Tang Ao's perception, Qiu Yun, who was at the third level of the body refining realm, had a soul remembrance that wasn't any weaker than a sixth-level body refining realm martial artist. Since Qiu Yun knew, then Tang Ao naturally didn't have anything to do with it. Outside Morong Xian's room, Yu Er carried the food box and lightly knocked on the door. Just as Yu Er knocked on the door, Morong Xian smiled and opened the door. After opening the door, Morong Xian rubbed Yu Er's little head. Although Yu Er was only a servant, Morong Xian had always treated Yu Er like her own little sister. Little sister Yu Er, you need to eat more. Why are you always so skinny? After speaking, Murong Xian took out a jade bottle from her storage pouch. Inside the jade bottle were 6 jade white pills. These are vitality cultivating pills. Although you can't cultivate, eating one every day can nourish your body. Big sister Xian Xian, I can't take this. You heard that this vitality cultivating pill is for martial artists like you. You can't cultivate, so using this pill is too wasteful. You hurriedly waved her little hand to reject. Murong Xian was right. Even if a normal person used the vitality cultivating pill, it would have the effect of unblocking meridians and strengthening one's foundation. However, Yu'er knew that although the Murong family was a large family, every disciple, including Murong Xian, received a limited amount of vitality cultivating pills every month. Eating the vitality cultivating pill could only nourish her body. However, to Murong Xian, the vitality cultivating pill was an important cultivation resource. If I give it to you, just take it. If you don't want it, big sister Xian Xian will get angry. As Murong Xian spoke, she handed the vitality cultivating pill to Yu'er's little hand. Yu'er was about to return the vitality pill to Murong Xian when Xiao Yun, who was standing at the side, smiled at Yu'er. Sister Xian Xian gave it to you. You just need to keep it properly. In the future, Yu'er will also treat Sister Xian Xian better. Sister Xian Xian and I have something to talk about. Yu'er, go and see your big brother Tang Ao. Yu'er nodded when she heard Xiao Yun's words. Even though she had accepted the vitality pill, Yu'er was still thinking about when she would return it to Murong Xian. Even though Murong Xian was a good person, only the kind-hearted Yu'er received special care from Murong Xian's handmaidens. At the corner of the long corridor, a servant girl with a somewhat harsh gaze looked at Yu'er with extreme jealousy. When she saw the vitality nurturing pill in Yu'er's hand, undisguised greed appeared in her eyes. Yu'er was born with no way to cultivate, but she was still able to obtain the vitality cultivating pill. She, Ding Hong, was the most talented among Murong Xian's handmaidens, but she had never received a vitality cultivating pill. From Ding Hong's point of view, if she could be like Xiao Yun or her own sister Ding Ning and receive a fixed amount of vitality cultivating pills every month, she would have long entered the 3rd stage of the body refining realm. Why would she still be stuck at the 1st stage of the body refining realm? Chapter 1197. Although Yu'er was still young and looked like a porcelain doll, she still looked like a 12 or 13-year-old child despite being 15 years old. However, Tang Ao could still tell that Yu'er was a beauty in the making. Once she reached the same age as Murong Xian, she would definitely be a beauty that could bring calamity to a country. All right, Brother Tang Ao, let me show you something. Yu'er's bright eyes turned, and she took out the vitality pill that Murong Xian had just given her from her pocket. Brother Tang Ao, do you know what this is? Yu'er waved the vitality pill in her hand and asked Tang Ao mischievously. As a grade 6 spirit pill master, Tang Ao knew almost all the elixirs in the black-yellow continent and the ice-snow plain. However, Tang Ao really didn't recognize the bottle of elixirs in Yu'er's hands. Brother Tang Ao, let me tell you, this is the vitality pill. It's a very precious item. Seeing that Tang Ao did not recognize it, Yu'er introduced it to Tang Ao. Vitality pill? What's the use of this pill? Tang Ao basically knew everything about the Flying Star Continent from Yu'er. Although Yu'er was young, she really knew a lot of things. Martial artists on the Flying Star Continent absorb the energy of heaven and earth to increase their cultivation base. However, the concentration of energy varies from place to place. Some places even have very thin energy. The vitality pill, on the other hand, contains very pure energy and can greatly increase a martial artist's cultivation speed. Since she could not cultivate martial arts since she was young, Yu'er would often go to the Murong family's library to read books. The Murong family's library contained many ancient books on the Flying Star Continent. This was why Yu'er had such a broad knowledge at such a young age. After hearing Yu'er's explanation, Tang Ao understood. The vitality pill was equivalent to the spirit stones in the black-yellow continent and the snow pearls in the winter plains. However, unlike natural spirit stones and snow beads, the cultivation resource here was the vitality-augmenting pill refined by an alchemist. Tang Ao took the jade bottle containing the vitality-augmenting pill and glanced at it. Immediately after, Tang Ao asked, is there a better vitality-augmenting pill than this? Tang Ao was a peak-level 6-spirit pill master. With just one look, Tang Ao could tell that the pill in his hand was very crude, or rather of very low quality. Moreover, Tang Ao could also see that this was not because of an alchemist. The alchemist who refined this furnace of pills could be said to be very meticulous in his alchemy, but for some unknown reason, the grade of this bottle of pills was still very low. Brother Tang Ao, how do you know that the vitality-cultivating pill has different grades? Yue was a little curious, but she still said to Tang Ao, according to what I know, the vitality-nurturing pill is divided into 4 grades: low grade, middle grade, high grade, and top grade. The bottle that Sister Xian gave me is a bottle of middle-grade vitality-augmenting pill. Above it, there are 2 better vitality-augmenting pills. Tang Ao could not help but complain in his heart. If this quality of vitality-augmenting pill was considered a middle-grade vitality-augmenting pill, then how bad would the lower-grade vitality-augmenting pill be? Then are there many alchemists who refine the vitality-augmenting pill on the continent? In Tang Ao's opinion, the vitality-augmenting pill was the most important cultivation resource for the Flying Star continent. There must be many alchemists continuously refining it in order to meet the huge demand. Chapter 1198. Hearing Yu's words, Tang Ao became even more interested in the origin augmenting pill. If I have the recipe for the origin augmenting pill, I can refine it. Tang Ao was a 6th-tier alchemist and had inherited the alchemy skills of the Shennong Emperor. Tang Ao's words were not exaggerated at all. However, to others, it was a different story. Just as Tang Ao finished speaking, a displeased voice came from the side. The ignorant are truly fearless. You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. How could the origin augmenting pill be so easy to refine? Forget about the origin augmenting pill. I can see that the origin augmenting pill in your body is very ordinary. I'm afraid it would be difficult for you to become an alchemist. The one who spoke was an old man in a black robe with a long beard. This old man's eyes did not have the slightest bit of kindness that an elder should have. Instead, they were filled with arrogance and arrogance. What does it have to do with you whether I'm an alchemist or not? This person spoke rudely the moment he arrived. Tang Ao naturally would not give him any face. The Shennong Emperor was the ancestor of alchemy, and Tang Ao was the true disciple of the Shennong Emperor. If even Tang Ao did not know how to refine pills, then there would not be many people in this world who could. How dare you? Who do you think you are? How dare you speak to an alchemist like this? Lu Chuanfeng's face was filled with anger, and his eyes flashed with fierceness. Tang Ao did not have the slightest bit of origin augmenting pill. It was obvious that he was a lowly mortal. As an alchemist who could refine low-level origin augmenting pill, even Murong Xian had to be polite to him. Tang Ao actually dared to talk back to him. He had no idea what was good for him. Big brother Tang Ao. Alchemist Lu Chuanfeng is a 2-star alchemist. Yue saw the conflict between Tang Ao and Lu Chuanfeng and was a little worried for Tang Ao. Normally, Lu Chuanfeng relied on his ability to refine low-level origin augmenting pills to run amok. Many cultivators had to be polite to him. Moreover, Lu Chuanfeng was an extremely narrow-minded person. If Tang Ao offended him, he would definitely suffer the consequences. After Lu Chuanfeng finished speaking, without waiting for Tang Ao to speak, Tang Ao felt a gust of wind behind him. Scanning with his soul remembrance, Tang Ao saw a black-clothed martial artist attack him with a whip kick. If it was before Tang Ao was injured, even if Tang Ao stood still and let this person hit him for a year, Tang Ao would not be injured in the slightest. However, now that Tang Ao had not recovered from his injuries, he could not even dodge. Poochie! Tang Ao felt a sharp pain in his back, and the wound that had not fully healed split open again. Under Lu Gang's attack, Tang Ao flew over the railing and fell into the river of forgetfulness. When Yue saw this, she immediately threw herself at the railing and looked into the water. Seeing Tang Ao fall into the water, Yue wanted to save Tang Ao, but Yue didn't know how to swim. Master Lu Chuanfeng, there's no need to lower yourself to the same level as this person who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. After a whip kick sent Tang Ao into the river of forgetfulness, Lu Gang looked at Lu Chuanfeng with a fawning expression. Lu Gang was part of the Murong family's young Mrs. Bloodline. On this boat, Lu Gang didn't dare disrespect Murong Xian, but he didn't dare offend Lu Chuanfeng. Just now, he had coincidentally seen Tang Ao contradict Lu Chuanfeng. Lu Gang was overjoyed and immediately kicked Tang Ao into the water. As for whether or not Tang Ao was saved by Murong Xian, Lu Gang didn't care. Commander Lu Gang, you've gone too far. At this time, Murong Xian had already arrived at the railing. After coldly speaking, Murong Xian leaped off the boat. After arriving at Tang Ao's side, Murong Xian grabbed Tang Ao and returned to the boat. After being rescued onto the boat, Tang Ao couldn't hold it in any longer and spat out another mouthful of blood, causing the front of his clothes to turn blood red. Chapter 1199. I, Tang Xian, will remember your kindness today. Tang Ao looked at Lu Gang and Lu Chuanfeng silently. His gaze was not threatening at all, but it was filled with coldness. Under this gaze, Lu Gang and Lu Chuanfeng, who clearly knew that Tang Ao was just an ordinary person, couldn't help but restrain their expressions. In that instant, the two of them felt an abnormal pressure. Murong Xian also glanced at Tang Ao. It had been 3 days since she rescued Tang Ao on the pleasure boat, but Murong Xian still didn't understand Tang Ao at all. Initially, Murong Xian thought that Tang Ao wouldn't be able to hold on for long and would die. However, Murong Xian didn't expect that Tang Ao's self-healing ability was too shocking. Not only did he not die from such heavy injuries, he could actually walk after 2 or 3 days. Murong Xian was also very suspicious of Tang Ao's indifferent gaze just now. Although she couldn't explain it, Murong Xian felt that such a gaze was definitely not something an ordinary person who couldn't cultivate could have. You're courting death. Although Lu Gang was stunned for a moment by Tang Ao's words, he quickly regained his senses. Although Lu Chuanfeng didn't say anything, his eyes also flashed with coldness. Tang Ao had contradicted him time and time again, and he had just threatened Tang Ao. Lu Chuanfeng already wanted to kill Tang Ao. Therefore, Lu Chuanfeng looked at Lu Gang coldly and signaled for him to finish off Tang Ao. Lu Gang's action was originally to curry favor with Lu Chuanfeng. Now that Lu Chuanfeng had signaled, even with Murong Xian at the side, Lu Gang didn't hesitate to smash his iron fist towards Tang Ao. Meanwhile, Qiu Yun, who was beside Tang Ao, appeared in a flash. At the same time, she slapped at Lu Gang's iron fist. Tang Ao could see that Qiu Yun had grasped the timing very well. Qiu Yun, who was only at the early stages of the 3rd stage of the body refining realm, was no match for Li Gang, who was at the peak of the 4th stage of the body refining realm. After being blocked by Qiu Yun, a ferocious tiger life soul erupted behind Lu Gang. It was the life-stealing tiger from the 5th firmament. After summoning his life soul, Lu Gang's figure seemed to merge with the life-stealing tiger. Then, Lu Gang pounced on Qiu Yun and sent her flying. After sending AI Qiu Yun flying, Lu Gang charged towards Tang Ao without losing any momentum. It was as if he wanted to tear Tang Ao to shreds. Impudent. After Lu Gang injured Qiu Yun, Murong Xian instantly stood in front of Tang Ao. Murong Xian did not make a move. She merely stared coldly at Lu Gang. Murong Xian was the daughter of the current head of the Murong family, Murong Di. However, Aside from Murong Xian, Murong Di also had a concubine's daughter. Murong Xian had no interest in the family's power, but her half-sister, Murong Lan, had always been against Murong Xian. This Lu Gang in front of Lu Gang was from Murong Lan's bloodline. Originally, before her father, Murong Di, was injured, Murong Lan had been rather restrained. However, now that Murong Di was recovering from his illness, her sister, Murong Lan, had gradually revealed her fangs. Although Lu Gang did not fear Murong Xian, the head of the family, Murong Di, was still alive. Lu Gang did not dare to go overboard. As Murong Xian stood in front of Tang Ao, Lu Gang immediately retreated. Following a flash of light, the life-stealing tiger life soul that Lu Gang had summoned was retracted into his body. After retracting the life soul, Lu Gang looked coldly at Tang Ao and said, "Brat, let's see how long you can hide." Chapter 1200. A dragon in shallow water would be toyed with by shrimps, and a tiger in plain land would be bullied by dogs. Tang Ao's heart was filled with helplessness. In his previous life, Tang Ao was a peak 9th level astral reaching realm demon lord. For a low-level continent, like the Flying Star continent, Tang Ao could turn it into ashes with a single stroke of anger. But now, a mere 4th-tier body refining realm martial artist actually dared to be speechless in front of him and even injured him. As Tang Ao lamented, his eyes were also filled with apathy. Tang Ao rarely showed such an expression, but those who were familiar with Tang Ao knew that when Tang Ao showed such an expression, it meant that someone was about to die. "You're Tang Ao, right? Come to my room later. When I was hugging you just now, I felt that your injuries were quite severe. I want to examine your injuries carefully." However, this somber atmosphere melted away with just one sentence from Murong Xian. When Murong Xian rescued Tang Ao just now, she was worried that Tang Ao's injuries would be too severe, so she carried Tang Ao onto the ship. It wasn't that Tang Ao hadn't been in contact with beautiful women before, but when a beautiful woman asked him to carefully examine his injuries in public, Tang Ao felt a little ashamed. However, Tang Ao still nodded. At a time like this, it was undoubtedly safer for him to stay by Murong Xian's side. Who knew if Lu Gang would take things too hard and cause trouble for Tang Ao again? Moreover, looking at Lu Gang's attentive attitude towards Lu Chuanfeng, such a thing was extremely likely. After Lu Gang and the others left, Tang Ao followed Murong Xian to the second floor of the pleasure boat. There were only 3 rooms on the second floor of the pleasure boat. Originally, Murong Xian, Qiu Yun, and Yuer each had a room. After Murong Xian brought Tang Ao upstairs, she let Yuer and Qiu Yun stay together while Yuer's original room was given to Tang Ao. "Young Master Tang Ao, is there anything else?" After Murong Xian had arranged a room for Tang Ao, she saw that Tang Ao was still standing there. She could not help but ask in confusion, "Didn't Miss Murong want to help me examine my injuries?" Tang Ao said without thinking too much. A strange look flashed across Murong Xian's eyes when she heard this. When she saw that Tang Ao's eyes were clear, Murong Xian rolled her eyes at Tang Ao. "I was just making up an excuse, but you took it seriously. But it's okay to chat with you. Come with me." Murong Xian's words startled Tang Ao. Tang Ao had initially thought that Murong Xian had some sort of special technique that allowed her to see through his injuries. Naturally, Tang Ao did not have the honor of visiting Murong Xian's boudoir. After following Murong Xian for a while, Tang Ao arrived at the reception hall on the second floor of the pleasure boat. Once Tang Ao and Murong Xian had taken their seats, Qiu Yun served them some fragrant tea and stood behind Murong Xian. Murong Xian rolled her eyes at Qiu Yun and said, "You damn girl, are there any outsiders here? Let's sit together." She then pointed at the chair next to her, gesturing for Qiu Yun to sit with her. Even though the Murong family has many servant girls, Murong Xian did not have the superior attitude of a master. Instead, she saw them as her sisters and friends. Hence, in the Murong family, Most people hoped that Murong Xian would be the next master. However, Murong's concubine, Madame Liu, has developed her influence over the years and has become a noisy guest who has usurped the master's position. Murong Xian does not wish to fight with him at home, so she has been living on the pleasure boat all year round. Chapter 1201. In another 5 days, the pleasure boat will pass by Yinhua Mountain. I'll escort you to Yinhua Mountain Villa then. The young master of Yinhua Mountain Villa is my friend. You should be safe once you get there. Murong Xian rubbed her temples and whispered to Tang Ao. Even though she was not keen on fighting for power in the family, these matters had left Murong Xian exhausted. Lady Murong, it seems that pill master Lu Chuanfeng holds quite a high position in the Murong family. Tang Ao did not answer whether he was willing to go to Yinhua Mountain Villa or not. Instead, he asked an irrelevant question. Murong Xian nodded and said, "The Murong family is now in decline. There are only 5 pill refiners in the family who can refine low-grade spirit-augmenting pills, and 1 pill refiner who can refine medium-grade spirit-augmenting pills. Among these pill masters, there are 5 pill masters who can refine low-grade vitality-augmenting pills, and they are all from my elder sister Murongland's faction. The pill master who can refine mid-grade spirit-fostering pills is my aunt. However, my aunt has a congenital deficiency and her body is frail." Murong Xian did not continue and sighed worriedly. This was her family's business. Even though it was not a secret, there was no point in telling a stranger like Tang Ao. Let's not talk about these headache-inducing matters. Why did Sir Tang Ao fall into the river of forgetfulness with such severe injuries? I was being chased by powerful cultivators. With nowhere to go, I fell from a cliff and landed in the river of forgetfulness. Fortunately, Lady Murong saved my life. Tang Ao hesitated for a moment before speaking. I wonder if Murongu Ninji has any high-grade or mid-grade spirit-fostering pills. I would like to borrow some from you. Once Tang Ao had finished speaking, Qiuyin spoke angrily without waiting for Murong Xian to reply. Tang Ao, how could you be so excessive? Sister Xian had saved your life out of kindness. Not only did you not repay her kindness, you even covet Sister Xian's cultivation resources. Now that Murongland's family has been suppressing Sister Xian, she doesn't even have enough cultivation resources for herself. Where'd she find the extra to lend to you? Qiuyin, stop. Murong Xian shook her head at Qiuyin and looked at Tang Ao. I haven't gotten any high-grade spirit-fostering pills in a long time. I do have a lot of mid-grade spirit-fostering pills left. As Murong Xian spoke, she stood up and walked toward the treasure box. With a thought, Murong Xian opened the treasure box. There were items neatly arranged in the box. In the corner of the box, there were 5 bottles of pills. Murong Xian's only hesitation was to take out the threefold vitality, nourishing pill and pass it to Tang Ao. Although Tang Ao's soul remembrance was very weak, he could still see that the treasure chest only had 5 bottles of cultivating essence pills. When Murong Xian mentioned that she still had a lot of mid-grade spirit Xian, Ao didn't think. Pill clan were spirit didn't Xian had a yang. However, Mo Xian's Xian clan, Xian Mu Xian Yang spirit, and Yang Mu Xian sect Yang Yang have a. However, Tang Ao didn't expect that although Murong Xian always had a smile on her face, she was in a very bad situation. Moreover, what touched Tang Ao was that Murong Xian was willing to lend 3 bottles to someone she had only known for a short time, even though she only had 5 bottles. Although Tang Ao was sincerely borrowing from Murong Xian, Tang Ao knew that Murong Xian was probably just trying to give it to him. Tang Ao didn't accept all of the 3 spirit-fostering pills Murong Xian offered. Instead, he only took 1 bottle. The quality of this bottle of essence-raising pills was the best. Tang Ao did not intentionally take advantage of this small advantage, but rather he really needed essence-raising pills at this moment. Chapter 1202. Although Murong Xian was a direct descendant of the Murong family, her monthly supply of vitality-enhancing pills was limited. Ever since Murong Xian had been suppressed by her sister's family, She had not received any mid-grade vitality enhancing pills for the past 2 months. The 5 bottles of mid-grade vitality enhancing pills that Tang Ao was looking at were the last 5 bottles Murong Xian had. Seeing that Tang Ao had only accepted 1 bottle of vitality enhancing pills, Murong Xian smiled bitterly. I've embarrassed myself in front of young Master Tang Ao. Take this bottle of pills as a loan from Miss Murong. 15 days later, I will definitely return it to you. Tang Ao didn't intend to take Murong Xian's pills for free. So, he replied after thinking for a moment. Tang Ao had borrowed the vitality-enhancing pills from Murong Xian because he was not a native cultivator of the Facian continent. Although Tang Ao could absorb and refine the heaven and earth yuan qi here, Tang Ao's speed was still too slow. This time, Tang Ao had been injured by Lu Gang's sneak attack. If he relied on his own body to absorb and refine the surrounding heaven and earth yuan qi to heal, Tang Ao estimated that it would take him a few months to recover. The vitality-enhancing pills contained a large amount of yuan qi. After consuming the vitality-enhancing pills, one only needed to control the yuan qi to complete a circulatory cycle revolution to absorb it. Compared to Tang Ao's current absorption and refining speed of heaven and earth essence qi, the amount of essence qi provided by a low-grade essence-raising pill was roughly equivalent to a week's worth of Tang Ao's normal cultivation. The amount of yuan qi provided by a middle-grade essence-cultivating pill was comparable to the amount of yuan qi that Tang Ao could absorb and refine after 3 months of normal cultivation. Of course, this was only in theory. Every cultivator was different. When different cultivators consumed the vitality-enhancing pills, they would naturally achieve different results. Miss, young Master Shangwan Fei is here, a servant said respectfully at the entrance of the living room as Murong Xian and Tang Ao were chatting. Although the servant was talking to Murong Xian, his eyes were burning with desire as he stared at the vitality-enhancing pills in Tang Ao's hand. This cultivator's name was Lu Tao. He came to the Murong family because of Murong Di's concubine, Madame Lu. Compared to Lu Gang and the others, Lu Tao was much more cunning. He would listen to Murong Lan's words, and he would not go against Murong Xian's words. This way, he could benefit from both sides. However, Lu Tao had served under Murong Xian for such a long time. Although Murong Xian had bestowed him with many treasures, she had never given him a mid-grade vitality-enhancing pill. In this way, when Lu Tao saw the middle-grade essence-cultivating pill in Tang Ao's hand, he couldn't help but have some thoughts in his mind. Tang Ao did not know who this Shangwan Fei was. After keeping the essence-enhancing pills, Tang Ao was about to leave. However, Tang Ao noticed that Murong Xian was frowning. It seemed that Shangwan Fei's arrival had caused her some stress. Even though that was the case, Murong Xian quickly retracted her troubled expression. Even though he knew that the newcomer did not come with good intentions, what was the use of being distressed? Following the sound of slightly rhythmic footsteps, everyone in the living room looked towards the door. Immediately after, Tang Ao saw a warrior with a long steel sword slung on his back. This man had 3 hideous scars on his face. Although they were just 3 scars, Tang Ao could see that these 3 scars were caused by a single saber strike. Chapter 1203. However, it was different on the Flying Star Continent. Tang Ao understood that on the Flying Star Continent, due to the thin yuan qi of heaven and earth, even the most elite martial artists could only reach the early stage of the origin martial realm their entire lives. Therefore, these martial artists spent most of their lives honing their martial techniques, which was why their martial techniques were very powerful. Ta-ta! Under everyone's gaze, Shangwan Fei walked in with slightly suppressed steps. Shangwan Fei didn't say anything after he walked in, but his gaze swept over the crowd. He then coldly said, Murong Xian, stay. The rest of you scram. This sentence was not only impolite, but also unquestionable. Xiaoyan stood in front of Murong Xian. Although she didn't move, her eyes revealed her nervousness. Every time Shangwan Fei came, Qiu Yun was the most nervous. Shangwan Fei was temperamental and extremely strange. As long as he was happy, he would do anything. The 3 scars on his face were not caused by others, but by his elder brother, Shangwan Wuji. It was said that during a banquet, Shangwan Fei suddenly went berserk and cut off the head of his elder brother Shangwan Wuji's most beloved concubine. Shangwan Wuji immediately drew his sword and wanted to fight. After the two fought for 300 rounds, Shangwan Wuji barely won by 1 move and left 3 scars on Shangwan Fei's face. Qiu Yin really couldn't imagine what a madman like him would do to Murong Xian. At this moment, Murong Xian was also very curious. This Shangwan Fei was a martial artist at the peak of the 7th stage of the body refining realm. No one on this boat was his match. Including this time, Shangwan Fei had come to this boat 3 times. However, no matter which time he came, nothing good happened on this boat. At this moment, a wave of messy footsteps came from outside the door. Tang Ao swept out with his sole remembrance and found that many people had arrived. Most of these people were Murong Xian's guards. Looking at these guards, Tang Ao shook his head slightly. Although there were many people, their cultivation levels were too low. The highest cultivation level was only at the 3rd stage of the body refining realm. Against Shangwan Fei, who was at the 7th stage of the body refining realm, they probably wouldn't even be able to take 1 move. Other than Murong Xian's guards, Tang Ao also saw Lu Gang and Lu Chuanfeng among the crowd. But this time, Lu Chuanfeng was accompanied by a bald man with a black dragon tattoo on his face. This man's eyes were very cold. Even though he was standing there doing nothing, no one dared to approach him. Tang Ao guessed that this was probably Lu Chuanfeng's bodyguard. This was because this bald man's aura was not weak, and his ability was not to be underestimated. He was at the 6th level of the body refining realm. Moreover, his arms were thick and sturdy, with blue veins protruding from his skin. Both sides of his temples were also slightly protruding. Clearly, he was a powerful figure. Comparing Lu Chuanfeng's guards to Murong Xian's guards, Tang Ao felt a wave of sorrow wash over him. Lu Chuanfeng was just a servant of the Murong family, yet he had the protection of a 6th-tier body refining realm martial artist. As for Murong Xian, the young lady of the Murong family, the future master of the Murong family, she only had a bunch of weak cultivators by her side. Shangwan Fei's sole remembrance swept over the crowd, and his lips slightly perked up. While everyone was still in a daze, Shangwan Fei unsheathed the long sword on his back at inconceivable speed. Then he shot out like a bolt of lightning, flying towards Lu Chuanfeng, who was outside the room. Although the long sword was aimed at Lu Chuanfeng, Tang Ao was right in the path of the long sword. Chapter 1204. This scene shocked many people. Lu Chuanfeng, who was waiting for Tang Ao to be killed, naturally did not react in time. Before Lu Chuanfeng could react, Shangwan Fei's long sword was already in front of him. At this moment, Lu Chuanfeng's cultivation was much higher than Tang Ao's. However, Lu Chuanfeng's cultivation was the result of piling up medicinal pills. Normally, he would not even practice martial skills. Moreover, his combat experience was pitifully low. Faced with this situation, Lu Chuanfeng's head was buzzing, and he shouted in his heart that he was dead meat. Compared to Lu Chuanfeng, Lu Gang was clear-headed. If Lu Gang wanted to, as long as he pushed Lu Chuanfeng to the ground, he would be able to keep his life. However, Lu Gang did not dare to do so. He knew that although he was not bad, he would not be able to withstand Shangwan Fei's anger. Ding! A crisp sound interrupted Lu Gang's thoughts. It turned out that the bald man beside Lu Chuanfeng had appeared in front of him, and Shangwan Fei's long sword had hit him between the eyebrows. However, his eyebrows did not seem to be made of flesh and blood, but made of metal. Shangwan Fei's sharp sword could not penetrate his eyebrows at all. With a wave of his hand, Shangwan Fei withdrew his sword, and there was only a white mark between the bald man's eyebrows. Oomph, Tai Long Chung, how did you end up being someone's dog? Forget it, come over and drink. Shangguan Fei obviously knew this bald man, and his attack just now was to force Tai Long Chung to attack. In the face of Shangguan Fei's sarcasm, Tai Long Chung did not say a word, and instead walked over to the table and sat down. He did not like to talk, but he was very obedient. Shangguan Fei asked him to come over and drink, so he came. At this time, Shangguan Fei looked at Tang Ao and said, "You come over and drink too." After saying that, Shangguan Fei said coldly to the people around him, "Everyone else get lost. If you don't, you can come over and drink." At the same time, Shangguan Fei slashed out with a ghostly sword energy, and then a scream came from the roof beam, followed by the sound of a heavy object falling to the ground. Needless to say, the person who had been spying on Shangguan Fei was most likely dead. After witnessing such a scene, no one dared to stay any longer. The group of people outside the door quickly dispersed. Even Lu Chuanfeng only glanced at the expressionless Tai Long Chung before leaving hatefully. At the same time, Lu Chuanfeng also hated Shangguan Fei. Since Shangguan Fei dared to humiliate him in front of his face, he would not be Lu Chuanfeng if he did not bear this grudge. After the crowd had left, Murong Xian nodded at Qiu Yun, gesturing for her to leave. Even though Murong Xian was still afraid of Shangguan Fei, Murong Xian knew that Qiu Yun would not be able to do much by staying here. If Shangguan Fei were to do something shocking again, Qiu Yun would most likely be implicated. Murong Xian wanted to ask Tang Ao to leave as well, but Tang Ao was asked to stay by Tang Ao. Therefore, Murong Xian could only give Tang Ao an apologetic look. Chapter 1205. I can sense a declining spirit aura from you. I have only felt this kind of aura from Murong Di, and your aura is even more powerful, which means that you were a powerful warrior before, right? After they sat down, Shangguan Fei took out a pot of wine while staring at Tang Ao. Tang Ao sighed inwardly at Shangguan Fei's sharp senses. He said casually, sort of, Tang Ao was a top warrior at the first level of the life and death realm. In his previous life, he was even a peak level 9 astral reaching realm warrior. As long as Tang Ao wanted to, he could easily destroy a land like this that had almost no natural yuan qi. The conversation between Shangguan Fei and Tang Ao was naturally heard by Murong Xian and Shangguan Fei. Murong Xian was a bit confused, but she did not say anything. Tai Long Chung, on the other hand, did not seem to want to talk at all. He did not talk much, and not many people could hear him. Taking out a pot of wine, Shangguan Fei took out a black bag from his storage ring. As a rank 6 craftsman, Tang Ao could naturally tell that this black bag was not a normal one. It was a very low-quality rank 1 immortal weapon. Seeing this thing, Tang Ao was very shocked. Tang Ao was sure that this place did not even have a high-rank spirit weapon. But now, he saw an immortal weapon in Shangguan Fei's hand. Ignoring Tang Ao's shock, Shangguan Fei immediately put the black bag on the table. After Shangguan Fei put the black bag on the table, the thing inside the bag started to struggle violently. Seeing the movement inside the bag, Tang Ao and the other two were a bit surprised. The sack was actually filled with a living creature. Too bad that Murong Di is not here. Otherwise, he would really thank me, Shangguan Fei said as he opened the bag. The second Shangguan Fei opened the bag, a blood-colored leopard suddenly jumped out and fiercely clawed at Tai Long Chung. The civet cat's speed was incomparably fast. If this attack had been aimed at Tang Ao or Murong Xian, it would have been difficult for them to dodge, even if they could react in time. Just now, when facing Shangguan Fei's fine steel longsword, Tai Long Chung had used his face to block it, but now, when facing the blood-red raccoon's claw, Tai Long Chung suddenly took a step back. Immediately, golden light burst out behind him as he released the Dharma Staff life spirit of the 9 heavens. The moment the civet cat appeared, everyone on the pleasure boat felt a demonic aura. When Tang Ao and Murong Xian saw the blood-red raccoon, they immediately retreated. The blood-red leopard cat's fur was as red as blood, as if blood was dripping from its fur. Not only that, but the raccoon's eyes were extremely demonic. Looking at it from afar, it gave off a creepy feeling. With a dull thud, the raccoon's sharp claws collided with Tai Longqing's Zen staff life soul. Immediately after, the few of them were shocked to see that Tai Longqing was actually pushed back a few steps by the raccoon's claw. Tai Longqing tightened his grip on the Zen staff and said in a low voice, "Shangguan Fei, you've even stolen Lady Lu Yan's three-tailed blood leopard cat. Can you even afford to raise it?" As for this demonic beast, Tang Ao did not recognize it. However, judging from Tai Longqing's expression, this demonic beast seemed to be quite unusual. Tang Ao did not recognize this demonic beast, but Murong Xin did. Murong Xin immediately sent a telepathic message to Tang Ao. "Tang Ao, stay back. This is a demonic beast that eats human blood." Chapter 1206. He, who said I was going to raise this beast? Shangguan Fei pulled out his sword and said with a smile, "The three-tailed blood civet doesn't have a tail in the beginning. After devouring the blood of 1,000 pure young warriors, it will grow its first tail. After devouring the blood of 1,000 pure Yin warriors, it will grow its second tail. By repeating this cycle, it can grow a total of 9 tails. This beast now has 3 tails, so it has harmed at least 3,000 warriors. It's not a big deal for me to bleed it." As Shangguan Fei spoke, the three-tailed blood civet let out a strange cry and clawed at Shangguan Fei. When the blood civet saw Tai Longqing, it thought that it was Tai Longqing who had caught it. After carefully identifying the aura, the blood civet realized that Shangguan Fei was the culprit. Although the blood civet was strong, Shangguan Fei was not weak either. Tang Ao saw that Shangguan Fei had his left hand behind his back, and his right hand was wielding a swift sword. Ding, 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 ling. With the sound of metal clashing, Shangguan Fei and the three-tailed blood civet exchanged dozens of blows. The three-tailed blood civet's sharp claws danced like the scythe of the Grim Reaper. Shangguan Fei's sword danced, and no matter how the three-tailed blood civet attacked, it could not break through Shangguan Fei's defense. Moreover, in the gaps between the blood civet's moves, Shangguan Fei could barely leave 2 bloody marks on the blood civet's body. However, the three-tailed blood civet's defense was also amazing. Even Shangguan Fei's sharp sword could barely cause some superficial wounds. When the three-tailed blood civet failed to take down Shangguan Fei, it suddenly flew into a rage. Its 3 blood-red tails danced quickly, and the three-tailed blood civet's aura suddenly rose. Seeing this, Tai Longqing smashed the cabin wall with his palm and was about to escape. However, Shangguan Fei laughed and said, "Tai Longqing, if you dare to leave, I will catch up with you. Let's see if the three-tailed blood civet kills you first or me first." "You bastard." After hearing Shangguan Fei's words, Tai Longqing, who was about to escape, could only walk back with his Buddhist staff. At the same time, he took a heavy step forward, gripped the Buddhist staff tightly with both hands, and smashed it down hard on the three-tailed blood civet. But at this moment, the three-tailed blood civet's aura was already infinitely close to the 8th level of the body, refining realm. Although Tai Longqing's Buddhist staff had caught the three-tailed blood civet off guard, after forcefully receiving Tai Longqing's Buddhist staff, the three-tailed blood civet's body only swayed a few times before immediately stabilizing. Clearly, this heavy blow did not cause too much damage to it. "Tai Longqing, if you don't bring out your true abilities, I will be leaving first." When Shangguan Fei saw that Tai Longqing's attack did not cause any damage to the three-tailed blood civet, he immediately said with dissatisfaction. Tai Longqing did not try to explain. That attack, just now, was indeed just to test how strong the blood civet cat was after it went berserk. Now that he had confirmed the power of the three-tailed blood civet cat, Tai Longqing's body suddenly swelled up. At the same time, strange blood blue and white runes appeared on his skin. After Tai Longqing transformed into this Mu Yin, his aura was actually not the least bit weaker than Shangguan Fei's. And after feeling Tai Longqing's suddenly rising aura, the three-tailed blood civet actually gave up on attacking Shangguan Fei and instead pounced towards Tai Longqing. Clearly, at this moment, the three-tailed blood civet sensed that Tai Longqing's threat was even greater than Shang Wanfei's. Chapter 12:07. The fact that the three-tailed blood civet cat did not notice him was exactly what Tang Ao had been hoping for. If Tang Ao was at his peak, the three-tailed blood civet cat was nothing to Tang Ao. However, Tang Ao's current strength was less than 1/10,000th of his peak. Against this terrifying three-tailed blood civet cat, Tang Ao had no way of fighting back. Rumble! Right at that moment, a thunderous explosion sounded in the sky. The ferocious three-tailed blood civet cat actually paused for a moment. Tang Ao narrowed his eyes. In that instant, Tang Ao clearly saw fear in the three-tailed blood civet cat's demonic eyes. It was obvious that the three-tailed blood civet cat was afraid of the power of the lightning. Knowing that the three-tailed blood civet cat was afraid of lightning, the best way to deal with it was to use the lightning guiding formation. However, the lightning guiding formation required spirit stones to activate, and there was no way to use spirit stones in this place. Due to the fact that the laws of heaven and earth in the Flying Star Continent were too unique, spirit stones would immediately turn to dust in this place. Actually, with Tang Ao's current abilities in the Tao formations, he did not need to use spiritual energy and could use the Yuan Qi in this place to set up the lightning guiding formation. However, the Yuan Qi of heaven and earth in this place was also pitifully thin. It was obviously impossible to use the Yuan Qi of heaven and earth to activate the lightning guiding formation unless Tang Ao could gather the Yuan Qi. This was not the first time Tang Ao had this idea. Previously, Tang Ao had used a spirit gathering formation to gather the Yuan Qi of heaven and earth. However, the spirit gathering formation could gather the Yuan Qi of heaven and earth, but could not gather the Yuan Qi of heaven and earth. However, Tang Ao still wanted to give it a try. He transmitted his voice to Murong Xian and asked, "Miss Murong, may I know what kind of formation is used to gather the Yuan Qi on this pleasure boat? Does Miss Murong have the blueprint of this formation?" Although Murong Xian did not know what Tang Ao was thinking, she immediately took out a jade slip and handed it to Tang Ao. At the same time, Murong Xian took out a net that was adorned with all sorts of strange gems. However, after taking out the net, Murong Xian did not attack immediately. Instead, she looked at the three-tailed blood civet cat cautiously. Up until now, Murong Xian still had no idea why the madman, Shang Wanfei, would capture the three-tailed blood civet and bring it here. However, Murong Xian understood that if Shang Wanfei and Tai Longqing were to escape, or if they were to be killed by the three-tailed blood civet, then no one would be able to leave this pleasure boat alive. The treasure in Murong Xian's hand was one of the Murong family's most valuable treasures, the 1,000 Treasures net. Murong Xian would never have taken out the 1,000 Treasures net if she had not encountered such a situation. Even during the Murong family's golden age, countless pairs of eyes were fixed on this treasure. Now that the Murong family was in decline, these people would have made their move a long time ago if they had not completely figured out the location of the 1,000 Treasures net. Murong Xian even suspected that Shang Wanfei had brought the three-tailed blood civet here to bait her into using the 1,000 Treasures net. Tang Ao was unaware of Murong Xian's thoughts. After Tang Ao received the jade slip, he went to one side and began to study it in detail. Through this jade slip, Tang Ao quickly grasped the method of setting up a formation on the Flying Star Continent. Not too long after, Tang Ao understood the principle behind the energy gathering formation. Immediately, Tang Ao no longer had any reservations. He immediately took out his weapon furnace and began to refine the formation flags. Chapter 12:08. Although his cultivation was greatly damaged, Tang Ao's ability to forge weapons had also decreased a lot. However, this time, the spell flags that Tang Ao was forging weren't of a high grade. Therefore, it didn't take long for Tang Ao to completely forge the spell flags. After Tang Ao forged the spell flags, before Tang Ao could set up the array, the three-tailed blood civet roared furiously. It was obvious that the thunder in the sky from time to time had completely aroused the ferocity of this man-eating, demonic beast. At this time, the three-tailed blood civet's eyes were scarlet red and incomparably demonic. The three tails behind it were dancing wildly, and the aura of its body was rising steadily. Not long after, the powerful aura of the three-tailed blood civet broke through the shackles of the peak of the 7th level of the body refining realm, revealing the aura of the 8th level of the body refining realm. After feeling the ferocious aura of the three-tailed blood civet, Murong Xian didn't dare to hesitate anymore. She immediately threw out the 1,000 treasures net in her hand. The 1,000 treasures net flashed in the air, and suddenly, there seemed to be thousands of stars appearing around the three-tailed blood civet. After these stars completely enveloped the three-tailed blood civet, they transformed into a giant net that completely wrapped the three-tailed blood civet. After this giant net wrapped the three-tailed blood civet, the three-tailed blood civet continued to struggle endlessly. After seeing this giant net, Shangguan Fei heaved a sigh of relief. I guess that this 1,000 treasures net was in your hands, and now it seems that I guessed correctly. Don't worry, after we capture this beast, I only want 3 drops of blood essence from its body. I don't want anything else. I want 1 drop of blood essence, and I also want its claws. After Shangguan Fei finished speaking, Tai Long Cheng immediately said in a low voice. Hearing Tai Long Cheng's words, Shangguan Fei's eyes were full of murderous intent. Although this murderous intent was terrifying, Tai Long Cheng was also not an ordinary person. Facing Shangguan Fei's gaze, Tai Long Cheng didn't back down at all. If I can't even get 1 drop of blood essence, why would I take such a big risk to deal with the beloved pet of the eldest miss of the multiple chain dock? Even if we can kill the three-tailed blood civet today, if we offend the multiple chain dock, we will still be in big trouble in the future. Tai Long Cheng said this just in case. In Tai Long Cheng's heart, he also wanted the 3 drops of blood essence from the three-tailed blood civet. However, Tai Long Cheng did not dare to underestimate Shangguan Fei. Although Shangguan Fei looked like a madman, he was definitely not weak. Otherwise, Shangguan Wuji, who was as famous as Lu Xingjin, would not have failed to defeat him in 300 rounds 3 years ago. However, Tai Long Cheng also felt a little strange. 3 years ago, Shangguan Fei's cultivation level was about the same as Shangguan Wuji's. But now that Shangguan Wuji had broken through to the 9th level of the body, refining realm, why was Shangguan Fei still stuck at the 7th level? Furthermore, Shangguan Fei's current cultivation level was clearly at the early stages of the 7th level of the body refining realm. Furthermore, his cultivation level seemed a little unstable, as if he was in danger of slipping back to the 6th level at any time. Could it be that he was severely injured in the battle with Shangguan Wuji 3 years ago? Tai Long Cheng thought to himself as he attacked the three-tailed blood civet that was trapped by the 1,000 treasures net. Shangguan Fei's eyes also flickered. He was determined to get the 3 drops of blood essence from the three-tailed blood civet. If it wasn't for the fact that he couldn't handle the three-tailed blood civet by himself, he wouldn't have lured the three-tailed blood civet and brought it to Murong Xian's pleasure boat. Now that the three-tailed blood civet was trapped by Murong Xian's 1,000 treasures net, Shangguan Fei wanted to kill Tai Long Cheng first before dealing with the three-tailed blood civet. Chapter 1209. Shangguan Fei then turned to look at Tang Ao and Murong Xian. At this moment, Murong Xian's face was very pale and her aura was somewhat chaotic. The 1,000 treasures net had long been refined by Murong Xian. Hence, when the three-tailed blood civet struggled endlessly in the 1,000 treasures net, Murong Xian also suffered from the backlash. After holding on for so long, Murong Xian felt that her consciousness was starting to blur. However, Murong Xian still did not dare to give up. If the three-tailed blood civet escaped this time, it it would most likely start a massacre on the pleasure boat in a fit of rage. With its terrifying strength of the 8th stage of the body refining realm, not many people on the pleasure boat would be able to leave this place alive. Seeing that the 3 of them had trapped the 3-tailed blood civet, Tang Ao also did not dare to delay. Array flags flew out from Tang Ao's hands and landed in a specific position before disappearing. Tang Ao's hands moved like lightning, and a lightning guiding array was methodically set up by Tang Ao. As the lightning guiding array gradually took shape, the chaotic lightning in the sky became even more violent. The 3-tailed blood civet was indeed very afraid of lightning. When the lightning in the sky became even more violent, the 3-tailed blood civet began to struggle even more violently. Murongxian was the first to bear the brunt of the attack. She spat out a mouthful of blood, and her body swayed twice. Seeing this, Tang Ao hurriedly said, "You two, please help Lady Murong maintain the seal of this 1,000 treasures net. Soon, I will be able to attract the lightning to attack this beast." Although the 3 of them were busy dealing with the 3-tailed blood civet, they also noticed that Tang Ao was setting up the array at the side. Shangguan Fei chuckled. "My eyesight is indeed not bad. You are indeed a person who hides his strength." As Shangguan Fei spoke, he sent a steady stream of pure, vital energy into the 1,000 treasures net. With the support of Shangguan Fei's vital energy, the 3-tailed blood civet continued to struggle, but Murongxian was much more at ease. Tai Longcheng looked suspiciously at Tang Ao. However, when he sensed the dense, thunder-attributed aura in the surrounding space, Tai Longcheng decided to believe him once. Hence, Tai Longcheng did not say anything and injected his essence into the 1,000 treasures net. With the support of the trio's Yuan Qi, the 1,000 treasures net became much more stable. The area that was torn by the 3-tailed blood civet also slowly recovered. Roar, roar, roar. After a few attempts to break through the 1,000 treasures net, the 3-tailed blood civet's body was suddenly covered in a layer of blood-red flames. The moment this layer of blood-red flames appeared, Murongxian and the other 2 felt a sweetness in their throats. Murongxian was the first to lose control and spat out a mouthful of blood. Not long after, Tai Longcheng also spat out a mouthful of blood. Although Shangguan Fei did not vomit blood, his face was a little pale. Under the threat of death, the 3-tailed blood civet cat used its final trump card. Quick! Tai Longcheng suddenly inserted the Buddha staff on his back and put his palms together. From his trembling palms, it was not difficult to tell that even he, Tai Longcheng, would not be able to hold on for much longer. Murongxian, on the other hand, was already numb. All she could do was grit her teeth and hold on. This was because she had already refined the 1,000 treasures net. Otherwise, Murongxian would have been severely injured by the backlash a long time ago. All right, remove the 1,000 treasures net. Tang Ao suddenly made a hand seal. At the same time, a formation flag appeared in Tang Ao's hand. Of course, Tang Ao could direct the heavenly lightning to attack the 3-tailed blood civet cat together with the 1,000 treasures net. However, the 1,000 treasures net was a treasure that Murongxian had refined after all. It was closely connected to Murongxian. Under the impact of the violent lightning, it was not impossible for Murongxian to die from the backlash. However, Murongxian's cultivation base was still too weak compared to Shangguan Fei and Shangguan Fei. As soon as she retracted her power, the 3-tailed blood civet cat immediately broke through the 1,000 treasures net before Murongxian could retract it. Seeing the 3-tailed blood civet cat break through the net, Tang Ao did not dare to be careless. Immediately, Tang Ao activated the heavenly lightning without any hesitation. As the formation flag in Tang Ao's hand fell, a deafening sound of thunder could be heard in midair. Then, a lightning bolt as thick as a water bucket suddenly struck down from midair. Although Tang Ao had acted quickly, the lightning bolt had still deviated from its target. The 3-tailed blood civet cat let out a blood-curdling screech as one of its tails and half of its body were shattered by the lightning bolt. Chapter 12:10. After the three-tailed blood civet's tail was destroyed by the lightning summoned by Tang Ao's lightning guiding array, a drop of red, translucent, ruby-like blood appeared in front of them. Although it was his first time seeing something like this, Tang Ao immediately recognized that it was a rare treasure. If Tang Ao's guess was right, this was the blood chi essence that Shangwan Fei mentioned. Indeed, after seeing this drop of blood chi essence, Shangwan Fei and Tai Longcheng moved at the same time. However, they did not immediately snatch the drop of blood chi essence. All they saw was Tai Longcheng's palm strike. The extremely weak Murong Xian was sent flying by Tai Longcheng's palm strike and fell into the river of forgetfulness. Murong Xian's eyes were closed, and her face was pale. In her current state, it was extremely dangerous to be in the river of forgetfulness. However, Tang Ao did not have the ability to save Murong Xian now. This was because when Tai Longcheng attacked Murong Xian, Shangwan Fei also flew towards Tang Ao. Although Tang Ao reacted, he could not avoid Shangwan Fei's palm strike. Shangwan Fei's fierce palm strike landed on Tang Ao's chest, and the sound of bones cracking could be heard. Seeing that Tang Ao was not dead, Shangwan Fei wanted to attack again. Just now, Shangwan Fei's palm strike had already injured Tang Ao's internal organs. If Tang Ao were to receive another palm strike, he would definitely die in his current state. A life and death realm powerhouse being killed by a body refining realm martial artist sounded like a huge joke, but Tang Ao could not bring himself to laugh at it. Without a choice, Tang Ao waved his hand and a bluish-purple array flag appeared in his hand. After this array flag appeared, the thunder that had just calmed down began to roar again. Tang Ao steeled his heart and instantly recognized the array flag. Immediately, everyone saw the thunder above the pleasure boat explode. Dozens of lightning bolts rained down on the pleasure boat like roaring thunder dragons. Under the bombardment of the lightning, the pleasure boat was instantly shattered. Shangwan Fei, who was closest to Tang Ao, had one of his arms blown off by the lightning. Tang Ao himself was sent flying by a bolt of lightning and fell into the river of forgetfulness. His internal organs were churning, but Tang Ao still saw the blood essence falling into the bottom of the river of forgetfulness. Tang Ao took a deep breath and dove into the bottom of the forgetting river. At this time, the lightning was still dancing in the sky, bombarding the river from time to time. Tang Ao saw that the people on the pleasure boat had already scattered in all directions. Murong Xian, who had fallen into the water, was rescued by Qiu Yun, and Yuer was still by Qiu Yun's side. Murong Xian, who had just fainted, had regained consciousness. At this moment, she was looking around as if she was looking for Tang Ao. Tang Ao was very touched, but this moment, Tang Ao had also reached his limit. Tang Ao grabbed the blood essence and stored it in his storage ring. Immediately, Tang Ao felt his vision go black. Then, Tang Ao was swept to the bottom of the river by a current. The White Fish River was a tributary of the River of Forgetfulness. The River of Forgetfulness was the longest river in the Flying Star continent, and its length spanned across the entire continent. The River of Forgetfulness also had many tributaries. The White Fish River was one of the more special ones among the many tributaries. There were many kinds of fish in the River of Forgetfulness, but there was a fish species called the white spiritual fish that was extremely rare. Chapter 12:11. Many people were catching white spirit fish on a flat riverbank in the Whitefish River. These people were in ragged clothes, sallow, and emaciated. Although they were still alive, they didn't look energetic at all. A 7 or 8-year-old girl was searching for white spirit fish in the water with a harpoon. Suddenly, a figure was washed over by the water. "Ah!" Yi screamed when she saw Tang Ao being washed up on the riverbank. There were countless gyroscopic devil fish in the Whitefish River, and people who fell into the water must die miserably. He hadn't been here for a long time, but she had seen many people die miserably after falling into the Whitefish River. Ye's scream attracted the attention of a bare-chested man and other people. The bare-chested man stared at her, and then he suddenly lashed the whip in his hand at Ye's back. Ye's back was immediately cut open, and blood slowly seeped out of her thin clothes. Although tears were rolling in her eyes, Ye didn't dare to cry out. The supervisor had a strange temper. The louder he screamed, the more miserable he would be beaten. Slaves like her were not treated well here at all. After the bald supervisor lashed at Yi, he also saw Tang Ao, who was washed to the riverbank by the current. Although Tang Ao's breath was very weak, the bald supervisor could still feel that Tang Ao was still alive. However, Tang Ao was still intact after falling into the Whitefish River. Therefore, it was easy to guess that Tang Ao had some protective treasures with him. Immediately, the bald supervisor swung the whip in his hand and was about to whip Tang Ao. Seeing this, Yi said in a low voice, "Sir, this person seems to be injured." "Ha!" The sound of flesh being torn came from Ye's back again. Yi was in so much pain that she was about to cry. However, because she knew the bald supervisor's temper, Yi had to hold back her tears. After the bald supervisor glared at Yi fiercely, he raised the whip in his hand and lashed it at Tang Ao. However, his whip did not hit Tang Ao directly. Just as the whip in his hand was about to hit Tang Ao, a golden light suddenly appeared on the surface of Tang Ao's body, forming a thin layer of armor on the surface of Tang Ao's body. Gotcha! After fending off the bald supervisor's ferocious whip, Tang Ao's battle sage bone life soul automatically returned to Tang Ao's body. Under the attack of the bald supervisor's whip, the drowsy Tang Ao woke up. Dun opened his eyes and found himself in a very strange place. Tang Ao remembered that not long ago, he, Shangwan Fei, and the others had dealt with the three-tailed blood civet on the pleasure boat. After injuring the three-tailed blood civet, Shangwan Fei and Tai Longsheng had suddenly attacked him and Murong Xian. At that time, he had been thrown into the river of forgetfulness by Shangwan Fei. After falling into the river, Tang Ao remembered that Xiao Yun had rescued Murong Xian and Yuer while he had been swept into the river by an undercurrent. When he regained consciousness, he had already arrived at this place. What's going on? Why is it so noisy here? At this moment, a middle-aged man wearing a dark purple robe walked over. He was twirling 2 beads in his hand. This man also had no hair on his head, but his eyes were as sharp as an eagle's, giving off a feeling that he was showing off his abilities. The most special thing about him was that his eyebrows were very long. His 2 eyebrows were withered white and hung down his cheeks like hair. Chapter 12:12. Whether it was in the black-yellow continent or the ice and snow plains, warriors at the 9th level of the body, refining realm, were a dime a dozen. No one would find it strange. However, this place was different. In the Flying Star continent, there was no spiritual chi at all. In the entire world, there was only one kind of vitality that was 100 times weaker than spiritual chi that could be used by warriors to cultivate. Because the strength of Yuan Chi itself was 100 times weaker than spirit chi, the speed of using Yuan Chi to cultivate was also 100 times slower than using spirit chi to cultivate. Even so, the white-browed middle-aged man in front of them had cultivated to the peak of the 9th level of the body refining realm. This was enough to show how terrifying the white-browed middle-aged man's talent was. "Mr. White, there was a guy who rushed out of the Whitefish River just now. He looked half dead, so I came to take a look." The bald man was extremely arrogant in front of the laborers, but in front of Mr. White, he was as docile as a kitten and obedient as a puppy. After saying this, the bald man seemed to think of something again, so he continued, "By the way, Mr. White, this guy is also a warrior who has awakened his life soul. He should be used to feed the fish." Oh, after hearing that Tang Ao was a warrior who had awakened his life soul, Mr. White immediately became interested. After glancing at Tang Ao, Mr. White asked calmly, "What level of life soul did you awaken?" "The 3rd level." Tang Ao felt very helpless. The life souls he had awakened for the first time were from the 7th level. After awakening the 9 dragons, Emperor's jade body, all the life souls he awakened had been upgraded. Now, in Tang Ao's body, even the weakest 100 battle spear soul was already at the 21st level. However, Tang Ao knew that even if he broke the sky, these people would not believe that he had awakened the 21st level of life soul. Moreover, Tang Ao would not say it. Although he had not died in the hands of Shangwan Fei, the white-browed middle-aged man in front of him was obviously not a good person. Moreover, Tang Ao was very weak now. He could not even deal with the shirtless bald man, let alone the white-browed middle-aged man who was at the 9th level of the body, refining realm. Only the 3rd heaven. A look of disappointment flashed in by Wu You's eyes. However, he still said, after all, he is a cultivator who has awakened his life spirit. Let's not kill him for now. Send him to the caves to feed the fish. After saying that, Bai Weiyo no longer paid any attention to Tang Ao. With the 2 silver pearls in his hand, he leisurely walked off into the distance. After Bai Weiyo left, the brawny bald man roared, "You mother ***curs don't want to live anymore. Hurry up and get to work." Even though he said that, his hands didn't stop moving. Each of the 2 slaves nearest to him received a blow from him. Seeing this, everyone didn't dare to slack off. They all began to walk along the White Fish River, searching for the white spirit fish in the river. Everyone here had a hand in a white spirit fish every day. If they didn't hand in their white spirit fish on the same day, they wouldn't be able to eat that day. If they didn't hand in their white spirit fish for 3 consecutive days, they would be thrown into the White Fish River. The White Fish River had ferocious demon fish. Once thrown into the White Fish River, one would be bitten to death by the demon fish. The outcome was extremely miserable. Chapter 12-13. Previously, Tang Ao had borrowed a bottle of mid-grade vitality nurturing pills from Murong Xian, and Tang Ao had coincidentally placed it in this storage ring. There was also the blood chi essence that Tang Ao had obtained not long ago, which had also been conveniently stored in this storage ring by Tang Ao. Now that the storage ring had been snatched away by this bald man, Tang Ao secretly cursed himself for being careless. At the same time, Tang Ao had also planted a psyche imprint on this bald man. These 2 items, especially the blood chi essence, were extremely important to Tang Ao. Once Tang Ao's injuries had slightly recovered, Tang Ao would still have to look for this bald man to retrieve his storage ring. Just as the bald man was carrying Tang Ao down a tunnel entrance, a pale-faced youth walked over. When he saw Tang Ao in the bald man's hands, the white-robed youth smiled and said, "Big brother Ding Kue, are you here to deliver fish food again? Why is there only one person this time?" Ding Kue threw Tang Ao to the ground and said, "Wang Yinfeng, look at your current state. Sooner or later, you will die in the hands of a woman in this cave." The yin qi on Wang Yunfeng's body was stronger than the yang qi, and the surrounding qi was extremely mottled. Although his cultivation had increased significantly, his essence qi had also been depleted. Ding Kue didn't need to ask to know that Wang Yunfeng must have been living the life of an immortal groom in the cave every night. So noisy. Even Bai Weiyo's dog dares to bark at the entrance of a cave. Just as Ding Kue was about to exchange some pleasantries with Wang Yunfeng, a beautiful woman wearing a rainbow-colored feather dress flew out like a fairy. Before she even arrived, Tang Ao could already smell an intoxicating fragrance. This fragrance was extremely unique. Just by smelling it, the silhouettes of countless women appeared in front of Tang Ao's eyes. Moreover, the strangest thing was that these women were all figures that Tang Ao knew. When he saw a few of them, Tang Ao could not help but feel a pain in his heart. Tang Ao saw La Kale, whom he had not seen for a very, very long time. Tang Ao recalled the various experiences he had with La Kale in the 7 Kills sect. The 7 Slaughter Divine Dao martial technique that Tang Ao frequently used now was also given to Tang Ao by La Kale. However, during his trip to the Netherworld Emperor's mystic realm, Tang Ao didn't even manage to catch a glimpse of Lakale. Lakale had already disappeared. In addition to Lakale, Tang Ao also saw Enruosu, whom he had been in love with for 2 lifetimes. Enruosu was still as cold as ever. She was serious in speech and manner, and she was always contributing silently behind the scenes. In his previous life, Tang Ao had owed Enruosu. He had not expected that in this life, just as Tang Ao and Enruosu had met, Enruosu would also disappear into the Netherworld Sea. According to the Netherworld Emperor, there were spatial passageways in the Netherworld Sea that connected to other realms. Enruosu had merely been sucked away by one of those spatial passageways. However, the myriad realms were vast. Even a Netherworld Emperor did not know where that spatial passageway corresponded to. With Tang Ao's meager cultivation, how could he possibly find Enruosu? At this thought, Tang Ao became even more dispirited. In that instant, Tang Ao seemed to have lost all strength to move forward. So what if he was an unparalleled demon lord? He couldn't even protect the person he loved. So what if he was the #1 genius of the 7 Kills sect? Now, he had fallen to such a state. Chapter 12:14. In Tang Ao's body, Tang Ao's already collapsed spiritual sea and soul sea were also on the verge of collapse, looking like they were about to fall apart. At this time, if someone wanted to kill Tang Ao, even if it was an ordinary person, Tang Ao would not be able to escape death. Just when Tang Ao's heart was filled with countless doubts, Tang Ao suddenly saw another figure. This time, Tang Ao saw Chu Shuahan. Even in such a state, Chu Shuahan was still smiling very sweetly in Tang Ao's eyes. Her sweet smile seemed to make the world lose its color. At this moment, the entire world seemed to be a foil to her beauty. Not only was Chu Shuahan smiling, but she also raised her slender, jade-like hands and took off her dress. Tang Ao's mind was rippling, and his eyes became increasingly dim. Tang Ao's mouth suddenly had a trace of a smile. At this time, he wanted to hug Chu Shuahan again, but Tang Ao felt that his body did not have a trace of strength. Chu Shuahan seemed to know Tang Ao's thoughts, and actually walked towards Tang Ao leisurely. Tang Ao also very happily extended his hand, but when Tang Ao touched Chu Shuahan's hand, Chu Shuahan's gentle and beautiful expression suddenly changed. This time, the person who appeared in Tang Ao's eyes was still Chu Shuahan. At this moment, Chu Shuahan was lying in a huge room, and beside Chu Shuahan was a handsome young man. This young man looked at Chu Shuahan with a very worried gaze, and beside the young man, there was a group of doctors. Although he did not know what had happened, Tang Ao could also see that Chu Shuahan's condition was very bad. Seeing Chu Shuahan's haggard appearance, Tang Ao could not help but reach out to touch Chu Shuahan's face. But before Tang Ao's hand could touch Chu Shuahan's body suddenly burst out with a golden flame, burning Tang Ao's hand. Before Tang Ao could come back to his senses, this flickering golden flame had already appeared in Tang Ao's eyes. As the wisp of flame danced, a black mist slowly exuded from Tang Ao's body. As the mist was forced out, Tang Ao's eyes gradually became clear. Not long after, Tang Ao's eyes became clear again. Tang Ao looked around. At this moment, he was no longer in the valley. At this moment, Tang Ao was in a dark and damp cave. The light in this crypt was very weak, and only a dim candle lit up this space. With the help of the weak candlelight, Tang Ao could see that there were many people in the crypt. Moreover, these people had a special characteristic. They were all warriors, and their bodies were very weak. As Tang Ao was looking around, a skinny old man said to Tang Ao, "Hey, newcomer, how did you offend the dragon prison castle to be captured and brought to this damn place?" Tang Ao looked in the direction of the voice and saw an old man who was only as tall as his waist. This old man looked extremely miserable. Both of his legs had been cut off. At this moment, he was kneeling on the ground, leaning against the wall as he spoke to Tang Ao. Although this old man looked very miserable, Tang Ao did not dare to underestimate this old man. Although he looked very miserable, this old man's aura was very strong among so many warriors here. Chapter 12:15. Tang Ao didn't recognize any of these people, so Tang Ao obviously couldn't tell him the truth. Thus, he could only speak half-truths. However, after Tang Ao finished speaking, Shimin Shao laughed out loud. "You're still wet behind the ears, kid, yet you still dare to trick this old man?" A powerless ant that fell into the forgetting river was able to wake up from the illusion flower poison in less than an instant's time. Are you joking with this old man? Hearing Shimin Shao say this, Tang Ao thought of the illusion he had just experienced. Clearly, the scene just now was caused by him being poisoned by the illusion flower poison. Tang Ao scanned with his soul remembrance and found that the surrounding rock walls had a small black flower growing on them. Because this place was too dark, if one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't be able to see the existence of these small flowers. After Tang Ao carefully scanned with his soul remembrance, Tang Ao shockingly found that almost every place in this cave had these small flowers. The reason the surrounding martial artists were sitting cross-legged on the ground with serious expressions was also to resist the flower's poison. Tang Ao sensed for a moment and found that the flower's poison was constantly corroding his body. After this poison gathered in his body, the small amount of yuan qi in his body was constantly being consumed by the poison. As his yuan qi flowed, the poison entered his body at a slower rate. Tang Ao immediately understood that this poison was very specific. The stronger a martial artist's cultivation was, the stronger the poison's attack would be. The weaker a martial artist's cultivation was, the weaker the poison's effect would be. Just as Tang Ao had this thought, Tang Ao suddenly felt his head go dizzy again, and a few blurry figures appeared in front of him. With the previous experience, Tang Ao immediately gathered the remaining yuan qi in his body and started a circulatory cycle. As Tang Ao began to cultivate, threads of almost non-existent yuan qi were absorbed and refined by Tang Ao. Finally, this refined yuan qi was counteracted by the flower poison, turning into nothingness. Tang Ao's eyes turned solemn. This place was really a cruel prison for martial artists. Because this cave was densely covered with these black illusion flowers, cultivators had to cultivate at all times in order to resist the illusion flower poison. However, after painstakingly absorbing and refining some yuan qi, it would be corroded by the illusion flower poison in his body. In this way, if the martial artists in this place wanted to live, they would have to cultivate frequently. Some martial artists with poor talent might even need to cultivate nonstop to survive. Seeing Tang Ao's changing expression, Shimin Shao knew that Tang Ao most likely understood the mystery of this place. Shimin Shao originally wanted to give some pointers to Tang Ao, but now it seemed that there was no need for that. "Brat, you're dishonest. Now that you understand the mysteries of the crypt, you can leave." Saying that, Shimin Shao closed his eyes. After hesitating for a moment, Shimin Shao said, "If you are willing to tell the truth, this old man can let you stay in Shimin clan's territory." Clearly, Shimin Shao was very interested in how Tang Ao had broken free from the illusion flower poison in the time it took for an incense stick to burn. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.